Singleton breaks free. Nick Singleton, house call. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
See if they take a shot here. Howard looking to launch right down the middle. Smith is wide open. Too easy.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Let's look here. Quinn Ewers trying to audible.
To stay alive. Can they hook them? Touchdown, Matthew Golden.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Jaden Harrison bringing back the kickoff. He brought two back for touchdowns last year when he played for the Thundering Herd of Marshall, and he has one for Notre Dame.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Golden with a chance as a return man to set up Texas in good field position as he returns it from the 25.
And he breaks through. Look at Silas Bolden. Goodbye.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on semifinal night number 2, Texas-Ohio State, just an hour and a half or so up the road at AT&T Stadium. And even though there was a patch of this or so weather, everything's going to be fine. That place will be packed. Everybody who wanted to be there will be there. A few people delayed. I saw one story. Chrissy Floyd, who works for USA Today, had 6 different flights canceled, ended up getting in the car, driving throughout the night. So we'll get into that game, obviously, at some particular point with Ohio State and Texas. The winner will get the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Now, maybe I'm biased here. I thought that was an incredible game. I thought initially it was like it lacked a few big plays, but my goodness, the pendulum, momentum, that was a 1970s, 1980s style game for a while. Doesn't mean it can't be a part of this year either, but I thought that was a fantastic game. Both quarterbacks threw deadly picks, except the one that Aller threw at the end was the one that ended up costing them the game.
Yeah, both of the ones that, Aller threw 2 that didn't count because Notre Dame got penalties called on them. The first one was more legit than the second one, but I understand why they called the second one because, if I'm standing behind it, it looked more like pass interference than it actually wound up being. But the game was fantastic. I was like watching a game in 1988. I mean, it really felt like that because neither team was really throwing the ball all that much, and Notre Dame threw it better than Penn State did, which was a bit of a surprise to me. Penn State has no big-time playmakers on the outside at wide receiver. They didn't even target a wide receiver until I think the late in the third quarter or early in the fourth, and no catches from wide receivers in the game, which was mind-boggling when it comes down to it. But running the ball kept both teams in it, and Notre Dame just has kind of a bit of a team of destiny vibe right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game that started off, I was a little bit concerned we were going to have like an LSU-Alabama situation, like a 6-0 type game early on, and I was concerned that was going to be a bit of a bad look for the semifinal round. But it ended up being a hell of an entertaining game and really enjoyable as a fan of either team. I could just sit back and watch to see who advanced and enjoyed every second of it, and could not believe it when Drew Aller threw that interception there late. And then yet again I could, because like you said, Paul, he had thrown a couple. He's can be a guy that does that from time to time. But man alive, in that moment, in that situation, at that time of the game, my jaw hit the floor when he threw that pick. And so I know he was in the post game and he was shaken up and obviously not feeling like like things were all that great last night, but man alive, what a season by Penn State. No reason to hang their heads, but the no passes to a wide receiver, I mean, that's just silly. Like, that's just, especially in today, like, I know tight ends matter a lot in today's game, but, like, wide receivers matter a lot too. They've got great running backs. They've got great tight ends. They were controlling the line of scrimmage early. But, yeah, that no passes to wide receivers was just a bizarre stat coming out of that game last night and probably ultimately cost them in some ways, being – a little bit two-dimensional as opposed to three-dimensional. But, yeah, that was an awesome game. Notre Dame in the Natty and with a chance to go win one, and we'll see who they meet later on tonight. I'm looking forward to this game especially. I mean, as much as I was looking forward to last night's, this is the game that I've had circled, and I think probably a lot of people have, is this Ohio State-Texas game. So hopefully they can match last night's intensity and entertainment value, and I expect that they will.
Go ahead.
I'm not one to feel bad for James Franklin, but I do feel just as someone, if you look at it, he is risk averse as a coach. I mean, he is old school, and he's going to lower down those things as much as he can. And the least James Franklin thing I've ever seen is getting the ball back with less than a minute, running the ball for a first down, and then deciding, hey, let's grip it and rip it for a second. So I wonder if he just went like, this is why I don't do this. This is why I don't go get crazy. This is when bad things happen. That's what I wonder about that, because
did you see his reaction on the sideline? Like, he bent over with hands on his knees, like just sick
probably
to
about
his
to throw
stomach.
up. Like, who would not be about to throw up in that situation?
Absolutely.
But I think I don't know if it's unfair. I guess people can debate this, but it didn't take but 5 seconds when that game was finished or was looking like, it's pretty much over. The seconds are ticking off. This game's going to end the way that it does. It took no time at all for ESPN to go, James Franklin can't win the big one, see? Well, and it's like, is he not in the semifinals of the damn college football playoff? Like, I get they had to, beat Boise State and SMU, and in the eyes of people, that's not all that impressive. But, I mean, come on now. Like, to act like he still hasn't done anything at this point, just that's going in line with, like, the poor opinions of ESPN this bowl season, of just some of the things they've said where they're kind of setting these narratives or just reinforcing them that I just picked up on a lot more. And that at that time, I get where they're going with it, but I was just like, really? Like, after that game, that's the first thing that comes to mind is James Franklin can't win the big one still? I didn't think that was in great taste.
For many years, they said Bobby Bowden, Tom Osborne, and others couldn't win the big game. They eventually won multiple. Mack couldn't win one either. So we mentioned Drew Aller and the pick, which was also, let's not forget, a great play by the defensive back to dive and make that play and not let it hit the ground. He made a great play. Let's go. Craig brought up the wide receivers, Garrett. Let's first of all go to Jeremiah Love, who was fantastic. Remember, he had the knee injury, had an incredibly physical game, ran over a couple of guys at the goal line. Asked after the game by Pete Sampson, theathletic.com, about was there ever a point during the week that you didn't know, could you trust your knee? Not really, not any day. I just kind of came out here and said blanket and went out there and played. He had the leaping play, didn't get an extra yard or two out of it, I guess, but he was fantastic, and so was Singleton, the running back at Penn State. They both ran very physical. And then this one with the wide receivers that Craig brought up. This is kind of hard to believe. No receptions. None. None of the receivers, wide receivers, some say, well, they had guys running free. Not a single wide receiver, not on a little quick hit, whatever, did they have a wide receiver at Penn State catch. Although Warren is like a hybrid of what he does, the tight end, fullback, etc. But that is kind of a hard stat to believe in this day and age of football.
Yeah, I mean, it's been – Les Miles had the I can't get a quarterback. Lately for James Franklin, it's been he can't get wide receivers. Because tell me what position. Look, Drew Aller didn't have his best game last night, but most people would love to have a quarterback like Drew Aller. He has 2 stud running backs that were over 1,000 yards this year. He has a man-child of a tight end in Tyler Warren who can do anything. The defensive line is tough as nails. Those 2 ends, Sutton and Carter, are unbelievable. I mean, that is fantastic. Good secondary, good linebackers. Everything across the board, but wide receivers. They've not done that well. They've not recruited it well. And I wouldn't be surprised if a position coach change isn't coming on at that one. If you were to make a tweak to Penn State's staff in the offseason, I mean, you can't make too many. I mean, they're in the dadgum semifinal. But if you wanted to say, like, okay, we need to push something out, we need to change something up, I would bet you'd be wide receivers.
It's hard to imagine, though, that you did a slip screen or something. But again, they also, I thought Notre Dame was in deep kimchi in that first half until they had the drive at the end to kick the field goal. Penn State was bigger and better, faster, stronger. Singleton's run, very powerful. He had another one later on. But I thought Penn State was without question the better team in the first half. That field goal at the end of the half that led to that 10-3, and then, of course, they came out the Irish and played so much loose and free when it comes to offense. It turned out to be one heck of a game with big plays left and right. Penn State in the first two scoring drives, 14 plays, 55 yards, and took almost 5 minutes off the clock. They kicked a field goal. 15 plays, 90 yards that took 7 minutes plus off the clock and scored a touchdown. And in one of the comments I said, boys are eating in the trenches. They look really good, I thought, in the first half and even at points in the second half, but they just could not keep that dominance going because Notre Dame countered with what they did in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, as much as talked about it being a little bit of a tussle there early on and looking like it was shaping up to be like a 6-0 style football game, it did also look there for a moment like Penn State was about to just beat their ass. I thought Penn State was just going to go out there and just make this look pretty easy there in the first half. And like you said, Notre Dame got the score right there before the break. I think that was absolutely massive for them. And then obviously the second half then goes the way that it does, and you had a bit of a different feeling going in the locker room. But, yeah, there were times early on where it looked like Notre Dame was going to be in some trouble, like their line wasn't going to be able to hold up against Penn State on either side of the ball, but especially that O-line, obviously. Just really not looking good there early on. But, hey, they got it together. Give Marcus Freeman a hell of a lot of credit. Give Riley Leonard a little bit of credit. Like, he was not great by any means, but had some tough plays in there. And obviously they've got some dudes at the skill positions and some guys who stepped up big and made some big plays for them last night. So that was a really fun game, and, yeah, I enjoyed every minute of that one, although it just kind of ebbed and flowed and didn't go exactly the way I thought at different points. But that was kind of part of the fun was, hey, this looks like it's about to be a really low-scoring game. No, they're going to score some points. This looks like it's going to be a Penn State win. No, just get ready right before half, and then from then on it's going to be a much different game. So, yeah, that was crazy.
When Leonard threw the pick, that looked like that could be a dagger. Penn State scored on that. And then, of course, we mentioned the Aller pick at the end of the game with, a minute and something, whatever minutes left on a great play. Here's a note about Penn State's receivers. I saw this today in USA Today. Harrison Wallace III, Omari Evans combined, 67 catches for 1,135 yards and 9 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith, the freshman who plays tonight, had 70 catches for 1,224 yards and 14 touchdowns. Of course, he's like Randy Moss, superhuman as a freshman, and he will test Texas and vice versa. They've got a really good secondary. Will be fun to see how they kind of find a way to get him open or find a way to bracket him and make somebody else make the plays. Also, Abdul Carter. I made the comment yesterday because I have not in any way, shape, or form really even thought about it. We'll have John Cooper coming on starting in the next week or two from Outlast Guide to the NFL Draft. And I kind of made the comment, he's kind of a top 10 or 15 guy. And both of you, if all three cameras could be on all three of us at one time, you would have had this look of, you're an idiot. Yeah. He turned pro after that game. I love him. Think about LeVar Arrington, wore 11. Micah Parsons wore 11. Abdul Carter wore 11. He is injured. His shoulder is hurt. He got held about 10 times, but again, a lot of times that's going to happen. He was absolutely dynamic, and I love the way I don't know who's going to get him, but they look like they're going to get a great player.
In the first half, Abdul Carter and Denai Dennis Sutton were keeping Notre Dame completely befuddled.
Mm-hmm.
They could not, anytime that Riley Leonard dropped back to pass, there were running stunts. Those two guys were unbelievable. Dennis Sutton had that interception as he dropped back in coverage. He's probably a second-round guy, I would think, Sutton. Abdul Carter is a second-pick type guy. As a matter of fact, it would not I think the Titans are going to draft Ward or Sanders. And I think the Browns, especially given the news today about Deshaun Watson, which I didn't think he was going to play for them ever again anyway, they were just going to kind of make him the backup until they could get out of that contract reasonably without the massive cap hit. But I'm pretty sure that whoever doesn't draft, quarterback A will draft quarterback B. And then that third pick with the Patriots or Giants, whoever it is, that's probably Abdul Carter because the quarterbacks are gone.
Well, it's really unfortunate to hear about Deshaun Watson. That's really too bad. Anyways, Abdul Carter was a freaking machine. I mean, my God, man. Yeah. What a stud. And to think that he wasn't even 100%, to think that there was some doubt he was going to play, he wasn't going to play in that game. And for him to play and play that well and be as ferocious as he was, especially early in that game, you saw why that was such a talking point all throughout the week, why he's going to be such a talking point and name discussed moving forward when it comes to the draft. That dude's a dog, and no surprise to see him make it official and declare for the draft today with his season wrapped up. That's a no-brainer, and was going to be regardless of whatever his status was, I think, heading into that game. But definitely felt like he left it all out there last night and gave what he had, and it was enough to make a difference in that game at multiple points, just not enough overall for the team, just given the way the game ultimately went. But, yeah, he's definitely going to be a guy we watch for a long time on Sundays.
Hey, by the way, we will have Roger Wallace, UT radio color analyst. We'll also hear from Chuck Cooperstein, huge college football historian, fan, talk show host. Also, he's the voice of the Mavericks. He'll join us. Big Ten Country's Kenneth Davis, Baylor's Scott Drew, after their win earlier this week at home against Cincinnati. And then we also have Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix, as he has these analytics, and they all match up. What he said was going to happen, even though at times you wonder, he will join us today as well on the show. Plus, a story about the Carson Beck, who's now going to Miami. In fact, Garrett, I don't know if you could put that up in order or not, but Carson Beck, remember yesterday, entered the portal. There were a lot of questions about it. We will break down that story behind the scenes in the 4 o'clock hour sometime today with Carson Beck committed to Miami. Notre Dame, we've brought up the money that these teams are making, right? Some have made $2 million, some have made $4 million, some have made $8 whatever million. With their win and where they're going, $20 million with the win against Penn State, securing, as this Matt Hayes was saying, independent status. People want them to join a conference, they don't have to share a dollar of that. That's all of their money.
No.
All of it. And by the way, they're really good. If they were in another conference, I don't know what would happen. They're really good. They kind of get to smile about that.
Well, like we keep saying, everybody wants them to. There's been nothing has happened or probably will that will make them. And then this happens last night, and they get $20 million for that win. Well, what's going to make them go, you know what? I really do want to share this money. I really do. It's just not right. We're a Catholic school, and Jesus said we should share. I have a feeling that they'll be like, yeah, but he's not here right now. So...
it's a heavy amount of money, and I think that it just further flashes a light on all the times that you see, Notre Dame's going to be forced to do this, and Notre Dame's going to be forced to do that. You can throw that in the big, heaping, stinking, large pile of clickbait stuff that's out there because, unless I'm just completely missing something, there is no incentive whatsoever for Notre Dame to join a conference, and there's actually less incentive now than there was even a year ago, much less 2 or 3 years ago. Now, if you wanted to bring up that talking point when the Big Ten was doing what they were doing and the Pac-12 was doing what they were doing and hey, there's things that are going a certain way that maybe it does force them into a situation, that was that time. This time's now this time, and this time is totally different because there is no reason whatsoever for them to want to join a conference. less than ever before, if there ever was a feeling of them. Just somebody in the room with all the leadership, just even had the thought in his head. There's less than that even going on right now because of what they're getting in return for this run. So, yeah, I mean, between their TV contract and these playoff payments and not having to split it, I mean, they're in hog heaven. And, I mean, hell, the money they've made now, that'll set up their roster for next year, maybe in the next couple of years, to have one of the best, most expensive rosters in America if they choose to go that route. So, yeah, they're eating heavenly right now, and I just don't know what it would take outside of an all-out boycott by all of college football to not schedule them, which is, why would you do that if you're the Big 12? Because that's what the SEC and Big 10 would want. Hey, help us out and force them into a decision. Why? So you can have more control? So you can bring them under your wing and you make more money and we get even further away from, like, Notre Dame being independent is the best thing imaginable for the ACC and the Big 12. The ACC would love to have them under their umbrella in football, obviously. That would be the best case scenario. But if that's not an actual option, being the friends with benefits, which is basically what the ACC and Notre Dame is, and being that other team that just gets to benefit from the fact they're not lumped under the same two umbrellas, if you're the Big 12, is a great thing. So, yeah, I think if you're a Big 12 fan, you're an ACC fan, you're absolutely rooting for Notre Dame to remain independent, because that's one of the last things still preventing this from being an all-out monopoly in some way. So, yeah, you may not like it, you may not like them, but I do think if you're a certain part of the fandom, there is something to like about their independence. And in this big super conference era, their independence is actually not only extremely valuable for them, obviously, but I do think it's valuable to the others that aren't in the Big Ten or the SEC.
Yeah, no question. And then Marcus Freeman, my God, third year at what he's done. Speaking of which, well, Craig, you brought up and Paul about the James Franklin. This is a note from Pat Smith from WJOX in Birmingham. It's Penn State has not won an AP Top 5 matchup now since 1999 against Arizona. The first school to lose 3 AP Top 5 matchups in the single season in AP poll era history since 1936. Now, a lot of people don't beat top 5 teams. That's why they're in the top 5. But you would get one every once in a while, and there's probably dozens of teams that have not beaten a top 5 team. But when you're Penn State, you're going to play in a few of those games, and sometimes you're among the top 5.
Yeah.
The one win was, what did you say the win was?
99 against Arizona.
No, the win was 2016 against Ohio State.
Okay.
Franklin wasn't at Penn State in 99 as the head coach.
No, he's talking about Penn State.
Oh, I'm talking about James Franklin.
No, yeah. I know you're talking about Franklin. Penn
that's
State,
what the graphic is.
People are talking. I know that. People are talking about Franklin, but Penn State, the program itself, has had a long drought too. So it's not just the James Franklin thing.
Yeah, but that's all anybody's talking about is James Franklin, though. That's the graphic. I get what you're saying now. We're talking about two different things, but the whole story is James Franklin. It's not Penn State can't win the big one. It's James Franklin can't win the big one. That was what was said at the end of the broadcast. That's what that graphic said. That's the record being quoted all throughout social media last night. Just pulling up Jake Trotter, James Franklin, now 1-15 versus AP opponents at AP Top 5 opponents as the head coach at Penn State. So, yeah, Penn State itself, going back to 99, has had issues, but it's James Franklin that's getting the brunt of all of that. Whether that's fair or not, I thought it was a little bit unfair, although understandable, to have that brought up like as the game's ending, basically, especially after a game like that where it's like, not as though Penn State played poorly, not as though Penn State didn't have that game within reach to win it if Drew Aller doesn't throw that interception inexplicably, or they just don't make the wrong call, whatever you want to place the blame on. But I didn't feel like I was watching a team that was overrated or didn't deserve to be there last night. I thought I was watching a team that was going to be in the national championship game there for a little while. So at this point, he deserves the criticism. But I also think that, like, how many of those are Ohio State and Michigan, right?
No,
like a
I'm
good
sure
chunk
a bunch
of
of them are, yeah.
And that's the thing of it all.
Or
Is
Alabama.
you're sitting right behind those two, which is a colossal mountain to get over. But, yeah, you're expected to at some point get over that. And you actually had a road where you didn't have to deal with them necessarily. Maybe you would have had to have played Ohio State in the national championship game. We'll see. But, yeah, it's damning either way you look at it. From a school perspective, from a head coaching perspective, it's not a good look, and I don't know how you change that. I mean, you just keep chipping away, I guess, but the other alternative to chipping away is to fire him, and I don't know that that's a guarantee that you're going to be back in the national championship sooner than later.
I mean, look, he and Ryan Day have that similar thing. We're going to Coop in a second. Like, why would you fire a guy who's getting you there just figure out what you need to be introspective.
I don't have this proof. There's 130 some teams in FBS or whatever you want to call it. I bet only about 10 or 12 teams have a winning record against AP top 5. Now, a long drought, that happens. Bobby Bowden, Tom Osborne, among others, were told they couldn't win the thing was they couldn't win the big games. They ended up winning a chunk. But James Franklin does have that. It's on his forehead, and you saw him bend over, ready to throw up after the pick by Aller that gave Notre Dame a chance to win the game in regulation. We are now joined by Chuck Cooperstein. Chuck, of course, Chuck, you're old enough like me, and that's a compliment. That game had vibes of 1970s and 80s, a national championship type game, in my opinion. Your thoughts about just the game itself last night?
Well, obviously, I was doing a basketball game last night, and had a pretty dramatic comeback there. So
yeah, you did.
I didn't really get to the game until I was in the car driving home with about 10 minutes to go, and I think it was right at that point where Penn State took the lead at 24-17. And I guess I had just heard Leonard through the interception. They took the ball and they scored. And then, Riley Leonard comes up and he makes the big play to Great House. And, it's funny because people all year, and I'll admit I'm one of them, I look at Riley Leonard and say, how does he keep doing this? How does he do this? They have really no throwing game to speak of. And yet every time he needs to make a throw, he makes a throw. And he made the huge throw there. And then obviously, Drew Aller is a guy that I've never quite understood what the fuss was about over him. Never understood the whole 5-star ranking of him. And, they were killing Sean Clifford for 2 years there because Drew Aller was there, and Drew Aller needs to play, needs to do this. And there was nothing that James Franklin did that should have kept should have kept Sean Clifford from playing. He wasn't good enough. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. He wasn't good enough. But at the same time, Drew Aller's not good enough, and has not even been close to good enough. I mean, when you don't even complete a pass to a wide receiver, then you got a problem. Mm-hmm. And granted, some of that may be the receivers aren't good enough and they don't get open. But at some point, you got to make something work. And he tried to make something work there on the interception, and it was a terrible decision that he made. I don't know if anybody there is killing Franklin for going for it, with the game tied under a minute to go. He had 2 timeouts. I mean, he's got plenty of time to go make plays and get in position to go kick a field goal. I don't blame him at all for doing that. I mean, there's a lot of things that James Franklin has done his time at Penn State in watching big Penn State games where you'll look at it and say, what is he doing? And why are they doing that? But that was not one of them. I'm with you guys. I mean, that was a really good team that very easily could have been the national champion, and they lost. And it's the beauty of the playoff, isn't it? I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, David, you and I in 1975, we would never have a chance to see something like this because
that's right.
There would be just we'd play the bowl games and there'd be a vote after the games were over. And that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Chuck, what do you think about the growth of Marcus Freeman here in his 3rd year, where he was one of those guys where in close games the last 2 years you thought, man, that Ohio State game last year was just a clinic in not having control over things. Now it seems like he's kind of come into his own, especially late in games. He's not coaching tight, that's for sure.
Well, they were ready to run him out of South Bend the second week of the season this year, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Now, I don't know how many close games that they really played as the season went on. They were routing people. I mean, they were just grounding them down. Not that their throwing game was great, but their defense was great. They ran the ball. They were killing team. Who was really coming close to beating them? Nobody really did. Until we get to the playoff. And listen, Indiana didn't come close to him. Georgia didn't come close to him. Penn State, this is the first game in 3 months maybe that Notre Dame has played where they were threatened. And, I just love the way that their team comports themselves. They play with a lot of confidence. And you know what? They know who they are. They don't try to do anything that's out of character for them. And I think, whoever wins tonight and plays them in Atlanta next week, that's going to be really the key to the game. Can you get Notre Dame out of what they like to do? And if you can do that, because I do think, they're fairly one-dimensional offensively. If you can do that, you're going to beat them. I mean, they play pretty good defense now. And, regardless of who wins tonight, they're going to have something to deal with in Notre Dame's defense. But, can you get Notre Dame's offense off schedule and really make Leonard into more of a thrower, having to get it down the field more? And, if he can, well, then it gets really interesting. But I was really impressed with how they played at the end of the year. I even tweeted something back in early December. I said, with all the hubbub over the college football playoff, has Notre Dame become the one team that no one wants to play because they were just killing people? And it's one of the few times in my life I've probably been right about something I've said.
Chuck, I think at this point you've beaten Indiana, you've beaten Georgia, and you've beaten Penn State. I think you proved that you belong, and I think they proved that before as well. As you said, they pretty much ran through the regular season. Like Louisville was a close game, but, I mean, for the most part, they were untouched down the stretch. Do you have a strong feeling whatsoever about Notre Dame being in a conference? Because that has become obviously a big talking point with them being where they are, and that's been talked about for years. But I think in today's ecosystem, it's actually healthier for them to be independent for the Big 12s and the ACCs of the world versus them consolidating even further power into the SEC or into the Big 10. But do you have a strong feeling one way or the other about their independence and the advantage or whatever that may be in your mind it is?
I'd like them to be in a conference. And since they have the time with the ACC already, I mean, they play 5 games a year in the ACC, and they've even set it up to only one of those games every year is against either Clemson, Florida State, or Miami. It's like they've written their own rules. It is time to get out of that. But I don't necessarily think that, at least how the schedule played out this year, that that they had any particular advantage or disadvantage by not being in the league. I just think it's a lot cleaner for everybody. And let's face it, too, from a financial standpoint, Notre Dame just earned themselves $20 million, okay, that they don't have to share with anyone. And I think that's the thing that I would think that other schools would be just a little bit unhappy to think about. That, why are we having to share our money with everybody else and they get to keep their own? So from that standpoint, just in the name of equity, I think you'd like to see him in a conference.
Texas and Ohio State, you'll be there. That game tonight, AT&T Stadium. This is a collision course. Now, it didn't look like one, and we thought maybe another team or two would be in it, but your thoughts about tonight?
There are some NFL people, man, on that field. There are some serious dudes on that field, whether they'll be in this draft or in future drafts. It's going to be something to behold. And, look, I think, Ohio State, they have a thing about Michigan that they've got a mental block playing Michigan clearly. Looks like Texas has a mental block playing Georgia. Texas is better than Georgia. They're much better than Georgia. Should have won both games against them. But they played lousy in both of those games and ultimately deserved to lose. Ohio State, they're just so talented. Okay, their $20 million in NIL was spent really well, really, really well. But I do think that the quarterback thing is so interesting because Will Howard's never beaten Texas when he was at Kansas State, and Ewers just blows so hot and cold. I mean, those 3 passes he threw at the end of the Arizona State game of the Peach Bowl, those were absolutely brilliant. And then there's other stuff that he does during the course of the game. You wonder, what are you doing, man? Where is that going? So you've got that. You've got, Ohio State's banged up offensive line against the great defensive front of Texas. You've got the great Ohio State receivers against the great Texas secondary. I just love everything about this game. I love, and I know, we've been talking a lot about branding over the course of the season as the playoff was developing, and you're getting the rankings every week, which, by the way, needs to stop. It's just so ridiculously stupid, and it just gets people upset for no reason at all because there's only one ranking that matters, and that's the one after the championship games are played. But I mean, there's just such talent all over the field, and you got two of the biggest brands that college football has to offer, and they don't play each other very much. In fact, this is only the 4th time they played. and the stakes could not be higher. And ironically enough, they open the season against each other next year in Columbus.
Yeah.
And who wants to have the bragging rights all summer? So I'm ready. I can't wait to go. Can't wait to see it. I think ultimately Ohio State is a little more consistent offensively, and I think that's why they're going to win the game. But would it surprise me if Texas won the game? I would not be surprised.
Chuck, if Ohio State seems like when they jump out, then they're so much looser. And the games that they have lost this year have been the bare-knuckle brawls. Can Texas reasonably make this a bare-knuckle brawl given that defense?
I think they can. And Texas, it's not like Texas hasn't started games well either. I mean, certainly the playoff games for sure against Clemson and against Arizona State. I mean, they're up basically 14 points before you can really get yourself settled into the chair. They're absolutely capable of doing that, and they're going to have to do that. You cannot have what happened to Oregon last week happen tonight, because if it does, the result's going to be pretty well the same. But I do think this game is a 4-quarter game. I just don't see how Ohio State runs away from them. I just don't see that. What I am interested to see, though, is in the middle of the game. Sark sometimes gets too cute and gets too conservative in his play calling, and he always talks about all gas, no brakes. It's got to be that tonight. Worry about getting to Notre Dame and deal with that after the game if you're fortunate enough to win it. But this game, you're going to need everything to do it. And no messing around. No trying to really ultimately go conservative and try to run the ball. I don't know how much they're going to be able to run the ball against Ohio State, but they're kind of have to do it on some level. I mean, even if some plays don't go well, you've got to be able to show it to set up other things later on in the game. But I do expect that there'll be some fireworks early from both teams, and then the game will settle down. And then, how do you go play that game that winds up setting yourself up to play well in the fourth quarter?
Coop, I don't know when we'll talk to you again, so I'll ask you now. But based on what we've seen at this point, even with a couple of games left to go, what have been your thoughts on the 12-team playoff? Like, dislike, changes you feel need to be made?
Well, first off, it's something that was 40 years in the making, if not longer. So, in college football terms, that means it happened yesterday, right? I mean, it's they move at a glacier-like pace.
Yeah.
But it's been phenomenal. Just the build-up to the games has been so much better than it has been in any incarnation that we've had. Going back to the BCS in 1998. So this is a major step forward. Yes. Everybody needs to be included in this on the FBS level. It's really important. I think what it has shown is that, for sure, and if you were really paying attention during the year, you knew this, that the SEC was down this year. The SEC was not good. I mean, let's put it, it was good. It was not great. There were no overwhelming teams. Everybody had a flaw or two that they had to deal with. Texas, to me, was the best team in the league. They didn't win the championship ultimately, but I do think they were, they were probably the best rounded team in the league. But obviously, the Big Ten was really good, I think back to like when Nevada, Las Vegas was, really good in basketball in the 90s, and Gonzaga, where they are right now. If you're not in a quote unquote power conference, that somehow you get dinged because you don't play in a power conference, and yet your teams are great. And it's the job of the committee to look at the teams and how they play, and not necessarily look at the conference as a whole and say, well, we got to take this many teams from this league, and because this team played in this league, well, they're automatically better. It just doesn't work that way, and it never has worked that way. But the thing that really does have to change, well, two things have to change. One, the second round of the playoffs, or the first full round, the round of the quarterfinals, they need to be on campus too. Frankly, I'd like to see everything be on campus until the championship game. and have it be like the NFL. And I know there are a lot of college fans who say, well, we don't want to be the NFL. And my answer to that is, why wouldn't you want to be like the NFL? They're only the most successful sporting operation that God has ever put on this green earth. So why would you not want to be that? So I realize that affects the bowls in a lot of ways. But I think that, have it like the NCAA, to where the college football playoff runs the tournament. They're the ones that determine the sites of games, wherever it may be, and then play that. And then you've got to reseed. You can't have the conference champions automatically have the top 4 seeds. You've got to seed them honestly, as the committee evaluates the teams, and then after every round you reseed, because the job should be, if you want the regular season to matter, well, you need to be protecting the best teams, or the teams that you as a committee perceive to be the best teams. And so you reseed after every round, and then go play the championship game, sometime in January, whenever you're going to play it.
Chuck, I am curious on your thoughts of the possible rebirth of the Florida Gators and DJ Lagway, and the high school recruiting's going really well right now. Billy Napier, it's such a weird thing that happened this year, because Graham Mertz was he wasn't a net positive, he was a net negative. He was just there, and he was playing well. But when DJ Lagway came in, they started winning, and he kind of that injury allowed Billy Napier to kind of get out of his own way a little bit. And the Gators have more positive buzz around them than they have in more than a decade.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Because Florida's been a very up and down program really for the last 15 years. I mean, there have been some very good teams. I mean, they've had coaches that each have won, 10 games in the season. Dan Mullen won 10. Jim McElwain won 10. Got to the SEC championship game twice. Will Muschamp won 11. I mean, he had some good, a couple of good teams there, but they've never been able to sustain it. I would somewhat disagree with your characterization of Mertz in that, and it kind of goes back to when in 2019, when Felipe Franks was playing quarterback for Florida, and he broke his ankle, and they had to put Kyle Trask in, and that totally changed their offense, and it made them better. And Mullen didn't want to play Trask. I mean, he was forced into playing Trask, and then everything changed, and it was a lot better. And then they went to 2020, and they had a hell of a year. And ultimately, they had Marco Wilson throw a shoe late in the year. They had the meltdown at the Cotton Bowl, and then basically that ended Dan Mullen's time there. But Lagway here this year, he had played one game. He had started one game after Mertz got a concussion against Miami, and he threw for about 450 yards against Samford. Now, granted, that is Samford, but you could see what was there. I mean, and you could see the intangibles. He needs to be a more accurate passer, and by the end of the year, because of the hamstring injury, he couldn't run. But you can see he's like the Pied Piper. He is a leader. People absolutely follow him, and they could do things that they could never do with Graham Mertz playing quarterback. And one thing is, try to throw the ball down the field. Mertz just could not do that. I mean, their offense was limited in a throwing game to, the short throwing game. And maybe, if he got it, 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, that was a long throw for them. Well, Lagway changed all that, and he's changing that going forward. I don't necessarily keep up all the way on high school recruiting, but I do know that in the portal, they've gotten some major recruits, especially at receiver. They need to get healthy in the secondary. They weren't healthy there last year. Need to get better in the offensive line. They got really good running backs, really good receivers, and they're going to I think they're going to make some noise. But again, I think what everybody has to understand now, and I think even Texas people need to understand is that for as good a program as Sark has built in Austin, these programs are so good that ultimately teams are going to lose games. You're going to have to become comfortable with the idea that you're not going to go 12-0 or 11-1 every year. That there's going to be a series of 9-3s, and can you deal with that? And I think that's going to be happening for quite some time now, and especially with teams like Florida, which have been kind of down, and Vanderbilt, which, had a really nice run this year. South Carolina, they jumped up this year. They hadn't been good for a while. And everybody's going to kind of be moving around each other. Like Mississippi State seems to be the only one that is kind of left out. They seem to be have left in the starting gate here, and they got a long way to go. But it's kind of like what's now happening in basketball, right, in the league. Every time you show up and play the game, there's a pretty good chance, you don't know what's going to happen. You could lose. Nobody thought Oklahoma was going to boat race Alabama late in the season, given how Oklahoma had been playing, right? Not that Alabama had been playing great, but Oklahoma had been awful, right? And Alabama had no chance in that game. And that's what's going to be in the league. There are going to be results kind of like on Sunday that you don't quite understand.
Coop, I know you got to go and get on the road. You, of course, the voice of Dallas Mavericks, they have all these players out, Kyrie and Luka, among others. Morris, your thoughts about what they've done? They've won a couple of games easily after snapping a 5-game losing streak. The resiliency you see in this team.
Well, I don't think last night was easy. Last night was a major struggle, really, for 44 minutes, and then they had a huge run, 16 straight points, 18-2 to end the game. They basically have to tread water until Luka and Kyrie get back. And Luka may not be back until after the All-Star break. I think they're really taking their time with this because this is the 4th time he's had this calf injury in the last 2.5 years. With Kyrie, it sounds somewhat promising that, he might be back, in the next week to 10 days, which would be tremendous. But as it is, I think Jason Kidd made a really good point the other night when he said that, look, Luka and Kyrie are not here. They are not part of who the Mavericks are right now. You guys in the locker room, you are the Mavericks. So what are you going to do about it? And I think those players, and especially P.J. Washington, have taken that to heart. He's had, he had an unbelievable game last night, and Derek Lively was great too. And but I think all of them kind of understand that they really have to lean on each other right now because they don't have that superstar to bail them out. So they got to take care of the little things. You got to shoot free throws well. You got to, make sure that, you don't commit silly fouls. All those things that lead to winning, you got to be able to do. And so, right now they're tied for 4th with Denver, percentage points behind. Brooklyn plays Denver tonight, and then the Nuggets are here this weekend. And we'll be here again on Tuesday for a baseball series that right now with the series tied at a game apiece, it winds up looming very large. So they're a very good team. I think ultimately, David, Craig, and Paul, they know they're good when they have everybody whole. The question is, can they get everybody whole long enough for them to make enough of a run to make sure they finish at least in the top 4 and get a first-round playoff home advantage?
Go enjoy. It's not going to be as treacherous as you thought when you tweeted out.
Oh, it wasn't treacherous yesterday. It was seriously. Now, really, I love everybody being scared to death and staying home because I made it down the American Airlines Center in 17 minutes. This was fantastic. 35 South should always look like this. And then driving home, there was nothing. There was nothing going on here. And I understand. Look, everybody gets scared when we say snow, and I think everybody gets excited. You hear 3 to 5 inches of snow. I will tell you at my house in northeastern Dallas County that or I said northwestern Dallas County at the edge of Las Colinas that we had maybe a half inch to an inch.
Yep,
that was it.
Yeah, it wasn't like the Super Bowl, baby, back when the Steelers and Packers. Oh my God, that was miserable.
No, it wasn't like that. Wasn't like the Ice Bowl. When Houston and Notre Dame played.
Yep.
Or when Flutie came here to play in the '85 Cotton Bowl. And of course, we had 10 inches of snow for the NBA All-Star Game in 2010. We're magical at this time of the year with big sports events and good weather.
Thank you, buddy. Great to see you, Coop. Keep it up.
Right.
Great, Chuck Cooperstein with us on many things. Notre Dame and Penn State, Texas and Ohio State, college football in general. Love his knowledge. He's the best, man. I appreciate him for giving us time to discuss college football today. Around the corner, Grayson Grunhafer. Also today, we'll have Dave Bartu with all of his analytics. And If you have this, you're going to play and win games. And yes, a part of it is the recruiting rankings, and a part of it is scoring efficiency and stuff like that. And then also today, we hear from Roger Wallace, UT Radio color analyst, and Paul will have Kenneth Davis. He's a part of the Big Ten country. That and more, his top 5. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. This is for men. Your testosterone numbers can change, or number can change as you get older. Just part of, like some people have high cholesterol. Even if they have a great diet and they keep themselves fit, it's just part of something that can happen. Same thing with high blood pressure and stuff that can get inside your body. And as you get older, it can change. Go up or down. Good ways or bad ways. Cholesterol, high blood pressure, and then, of course, there's also testosterone. For men, that kind of drives your engine in many ways. If you have any issues with your sex drive, if you have ED, if you are gaining a little bit of belly fat and you're still pretty active and you eat right and you're not sleeping well and your focus sucks, Dr. Kent Petty can help you out. Here's how you can allow him to give you a chance to find out if it is your testosterone. Contact the website, PettyClinicLowT.com. Tell him I sent you. He will then and his staff set you up to get your blood work. They will take care of that, get the results, and then get back in touch with you. And if your testosterone level's fine. If it's too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone level, and you can become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be, or want to be better at PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's time to start something new at Allen Samuels. Drive into 2025 with huge savings on all of our Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram vehicles, from a trail-conquering Jeep Grand Cherokee, towing in style with a Ram Heavy Duty, or cruising the city in a sporty and luxurious Ram 1500, we've got the perfect ride for you. Stop by Allen Samuels in Waco, where we make car buying easy.
Come by, let's be friends.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
I'll never get used to this.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
There are a couple of LSU stories that Garrett Ross is trying to push as far back into the show so we can't remember it, but we will never allow us not to take shots of our lovely teams that we all enjoy and root for.
Garrett is probably as mad at me as he's ever been today because
from the jump, all morning.
From the jump, I've been sending him Brian Kelly stuff. And guess what the top 5 is about today?
Brian
The
Kelly?
difference between Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly.
Well,
which, here's the thing. Usually I do this on my own, and I come up with my own thing. I called Christian McCollum, our friend, and said, hey, walk me through what the differences are. Where am I right? Where am I wrong? He gave me some great stuff. So I doubled down on it. Now, I'm sure I need to give Christian Garrett's number so that Garrett can walk through some of this emotionally. But yeah, it's.
By the way, we're going to have one of his workers, one of his analysts, on the show on Monday to talk Notre Dame, and we'll also have, I think it's Dave Biddle, who covers Ohio State next week. If the Buckeyes win tonight, and if not, we will get some of the UT analysts that we've had on this week, and also including possibly next week, and even next week if they lose, to kind of think about they move into the offseason. We don't know. Ohio State, Texas tonight, coming up this evening. Brian Kelly, this was actually something he said. I want to be in an environment where I have the resources to win a national championship. Back in April of 2022 when he left for LSU. It's enough. That's all. That's it. Garrett?
You have the resources at Notre Dame. Like we just talked about all of this, right? And they have the $20 million that they get to keep to themselves. Like you had the resources there. You ran away from it trying to clout chase and chase talent. You're not the right fit down there. I respect that you're a winning coach and it's there. Like you have the numbers batch it up. But at the same time, what games are you winning? You're not winning the big games. You're not winning the championship games. Every time you face a coach that's on your level or better, you lose. So I'm just having a hard time with this, and Marcus Freeman has made my day a lot worse.
I mean,
he has been, yeah.
Usually I don't pick on Garrett like this, but it just, I mean.
Is it a fit thing, or is it just, because Brian Kelly.
I think, look, I'm
asking Garrett.
Okay.
Let Garrett answer this, but then you could.
A fit thing? Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a fit thing. I don't think he's the right fit down there, but also I think this is bigger. I think that, if you go and look at, well, first off, the contract's ridiculous. Scott Woodward needs to be checked as an AD because he's done this with Jimbo and now he's done it here. So that's a problem. I think culturally it's not the right fit. I think if you look at how college football is going, you want younger guys, energetic guys who understand, and I'm just not buying it. I've never been sold with the hire, and the way things are trending, I just do not like it.
Paul?
I think it's a personality thing. I think it's how he is. I think he's very good administratively, and that's what LSU needed. But when he left, if you remember, Jack Swarbrick wasn't like there was no panic in his body.
No.
It was kind of like, oh, good. We had both kind of gotten tired of each other, and that's fine. And look, that happens places. That's not totally incumbent on Brian Kelly. I'm sure some of that was Notre Dame too, but they haven't missed him for 1 second, and now they've surpassed him. Well, I mean, technically, he got them to a national championship too, and they got zonked. But even still, they feel much better about their future now than they did before.
Okay, Craig, anything on this? It's Garrett's topic. We wanted to make sure we gave him a chance to vent a little bit. It's always good when you have emotions to let them go.
Thank you.
Otherwise, they build up, and then you become a raging lunatic like me when I get upset. Number 2, about LSU. This young man did not play against Baylor. It's not like they needed him because the receivers ran free. But Kiren Lacy wanted on charges of negligent homicide, felony hit and run. It was an elderly person involved here. Mike Scarborough, our good buddy that covers LSU, with that particular story. How far or how much, depending on what happens, does Kiren Lacy drop in the draft? If he plays.
He's not getting drafted.
I don't know, because I feel like it all depends on how the lawyers set this up.
Mm-hmm.
He's a future millionaire, right? So he's going to get some level of grace and understanding that I wouldn't get if I did this. If I killed a 78-year-old man because I'm an effing dumbass who can't not drive 1,000 miles an hour in my Dodge Charger. 78-year-old man fled the scene, rendering no aid, didn't call authorities, charged with negligent homicide, felony hit and run, reckless operation of a vehicle. They've been in contact with his attorney. He apparently was driving his 2023 Dodge Charger, which I see those all the time, and I'm not old man, but like it does feel like the vehicle of like these incidents. Like
we've both driven loaner cars or whatever; they are a problem.
Yeah, or the Challenger or just things like those types of automobiles.
They're cars.
Yeah,
cars.
They're fast muscle cars. Yeah, and there's just not the smartest people always driving them, or there's people driving them that maybe are smart but like to flex the muscle of it, and that's not good for everybody else just driving normally. I don't know what Kiren Lacy was doing, but he was going way too fast, obviously. So he was driving his Dodge Charger on Louisiana Highway 20, recklessly passed multiple vehicles at a high rate of speed by crossing the center line, entering the northbound lane while in a designated no passing zone. He was illegally passing other vehicles, and the driver of a northbound pickup had to brake and swerve to avoid a head-on collision with his car. Behind that pickup was the 2017 vehicle whose driver had to swerve to avoid the oncoming Charger, and taking evasive action to avoid impact, it crossed the center line and collided headbound with a southbound Sorrento. Lacy allegedly drove around the crash, fled without stopping, without calling anybody, without reporting anything. The passenger of that Kia Sorrento, Herman Hall, 78 years old, passed away. Others sustained moderate injuries. You know, when he did the gun celebration earlier in the year, I just remember watching that at the time, and I know there were other gun celebrations, but I remember going, that dude's an idiot. Like, I just had that feeling immediately of, like, this kid's just an idiot, and he'll probably play in the NFL because, you know, you don't have to be the smartest, you know, person in the world to make it there. So long as he doesn't do anything stupid, well, I think this would apply as something far beyond stupid. So maybe this does ruin that NFL dream of his. I don't know, because you never know with these types of legal cases. But, yeah, it's ugly that somebody lost their life. And I'm just getting tired of seeing these car wreck stories that are so unavoidable, because it's not like it was torrential rains and whatever. It was driving 90, going in no passing lanes and going. It's just like, come on, man. What the hell, dude? Like, I know being young, you do stupid stuff. But, damn, man, costing people their lives. There needs to be some punishment, so the authorities will do their investigation. We'll see where that takes them.
The cars that we've driven, the Chargers and the Challenger, are both phenomenal cars. The thing about it is you got to know that when you're in it, because if you want to run it around in it, they can get up into a very high number if you're not careful, and it's you know that going into it. But not a good story. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst and also 365 Sports football analyst, joins us on the show. Grayson, thanks for being a part of the show. So where are they, Baylor, with the two coaching, the assistant coaches, both outside linebackers and Collins, and also looking for a new cornerbacks coach?
I think they're getting close, guys. I especially think that with the cornerback position, losing Kevin Curtis, a guy who's been at Baylor for a long time, and Caleb Collins as well, the edge coach. I mean, it's interesting to see a shakeup like this, and I know it's one of those things where those positions definitely could stand to improve, but you also look at it from the aspect of Curtis and Collins are both really good people and have done good things in their time at Baylor, but I also think this is an opportunity to shake up the coaching staff a little bit. And we kind of saw that really help out Baylor during that 6-game winning streak when you look at guys like Mason Miller and Jake Babital, Keenan Hall coming in last year. I think they're getting pretty close. I think the cornerback coach spot is probably the one that's going to be that we'll probably get an answer to first. And then we'll see on the second one. But I've been able to talk to a couple of the commits as well. And these guys were close with their position coaches. Kamarian Morgan mentioned that, it's been tough to see Caleb Collins leave, but, also really trust Dave Aranda and Keenan Hall and this coaching staff. So there's nothing to worry about there, but it's one of those things where it's like, these guys built some really good relationships all the way through the recruiting process and with the current players on the roster. And so it's difficult to see these guys leave, but I do think Baylor will have an answer soon to fill those positions, especially with enrollment coming on January 17th.
What do you how does this affect roster building right now at those positions?
It definitely hurts. The good news for Baylor, at least, is they've already taken 2 edge prospects. One of them's already signed. Amarian Winston is the lone commit that is not signed yet from the transfer portal. So we'll see on that one. But 2 guys that kind of, pledged to Baylor already. And so that helps. But then on the flip side, the cornerback position, it's one of those that, they only brought in one guy on a visit, and they were anticipating bringing in a couple guys during the second period. They haven't quite done it yet. We'll see if they get to it, by the time this weekend is over. But I do think it has stalled that process a little bit, and for obvious reasons, right? You want to get a coach locked in, but then you also want to allow that coach to evaluate the transfer portal and take the guys that fit what he feels like they need the best. And that's kind of where the standstill is right now, especially as far as cornerbacks go.
Would you say there have been any significant losses in terms of guys that they wanted or were very interested in that are now off the table?
That's a good question. I think anytime for Baylor that they bring in a guy on a visit, I would say that if they don't land that guy, then it is a miss. And so, if you kind of look at it, they've missed on a few guys who have committed elsewhere, like Ty Buchanan, who the Texas Tech transfer. He ends up committing to Arizona. That's where he's going to go. I do consider that a miss, even though, there's other circumstances with the portal when it comes to NIL and, playing time and things along those lines that can change conversations. But I think he'd be a miss. I think Chasen Johnson, who ended up, he committed to SMU, and then he ended up going back to UCF. He was one of Baylor's first guys they brought in on a visit. I'd consider him another miss just because it was very clear he was kind of a priority, as he was a priority for a lot of schools. So those guys, we're still waiting to see what Benjamin Bell does, the Texas State edge, but it seems like things there are trending elsewhere at the moment since he's kind of taken his time after the Baylor visit. So those are the three guys that haven't committed. They've landed 11. So I think they've done pretty good.
Grayson, back to the coaches with Collins out and then Curtis out. And there was some disappointment, the secondary, not just the LSU game, but they did not have a great year as far as the corners players were running free. This is Aranda when he can be kind of a silent assassin. He wasn't afraid to make moves. I'm not so sure the Ron Roberts move was the right move. He's made moves at the coordinator positions before, and he's also almost had to, because otherwise you have to look around the room and he's the only one left to blame. Is this kind of a surprise? Is this kind of something we did not know much about him, but we now know he is not afraid to slice and dice when he needs to?
I think it's a little bit different than that. I mean, I think we got that answer truthfully when he, made the change with Ron Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you mentioned it, and I know that we can debate whether that was the right move or not. But in general, that is a guy he absolutely trusted, a guy that he had a long-standing relationship with, and he moved on from. And I think that's as telling as anything. And then, of course, Jeff Grimes, who comes in, has an amazing, 2021 season with Eric Mateos revitalizing the offense. And then, he fires them 2 years later, basically. So I think we've gotten that answer already. And I think, some of this is you need to make changes schematically. You need to make changes within the room to bring in someone who maybe fits what they're trying to do from a coordinator standpoint. But then other times, I think some of it comes down to, are you stagnant or not? Is there progression? Are you seeing it in recruiting and on the field? I just think there's a lot of things that go into this. And when you made those moves last year and saw how, well they paid dividends, I think it makes sense to go out and try to find some more guys who are very impactful like that. And we'll see. We'll see if he's able to find similar guys or guys that can really provide an upgrade to the staff.
Grayson, Corey Gordon went to Louisville. Were you surprised? I mean, I know we talked about it as kind of a surprise when he left, but he had visited Alabama. Are you surprised that fit a little bit?
Not really. Louisville, I think, was the number 1 or number 2 transfer portal class last year. They really hit NIL really hard last year in football. They were up there. They took in a lot of guys. They were, spending a lot of NIL, and I think that makes sense. For Corey, if he wanted to go play a bigger role than what he was going to play at Baylor potentially, it makes sense, right, for him to go find playing time, potentially go find different NIL opportunities. That totally makes sense to me. And then on the flip side, Baylor going and getting a guy who was very highly rated in Tyler Turner. I mean, we're talking about a composite 4-star guy who everyone in the country wanted. So they replaced Corey Gordon with a guy like that. it makes a lot of sense, I think, for both sides. And so Baylor able to go out, find a guy who's got a lot of upside, who's got some NFL upside based on his recruiting profile, another blue chip guy to add to their secondary, definitely makes up for the loss of Corey Gordon, even though Corey gave them some really good moments a year ago, or this past year, I guess.
So, Grayson, if you're a Baylor fan listening right now, what you should be on the lookout for here over the coming days or weeks in terms of just kind of what they're eyeing and what they're setting up?
So, as far as the portal goes, the thing is they're kind of running low on spots right now. So we'll see kind of what they decide to add. We know they were in on Noah Thomas, the Texas A&M transfer prospect who ended up at Georgia. And by in on, they were trying to get him on a visit. That did not happen. He literally entered the portal. I believe he had a do not contact tag, and he ends up going with his former wide receiver coach, James Cooley, to Georgia. And so that's where he's going to be. So a miss there for Baylor. They're still looking for an outside receiver. That's been very evident. They've been pretty aggressive, but also pretty, I would say, stealthy, trying to find the guy that they can get at that position. So that's still one to look at. Cornerback, of course, has been mentioned a lot. They're going to continue to evaluate there. The good news at cornerback is there's a lot of guys available. There's a lot of guys still left in the portal that are very quality prospects. And so they're going to have a chance, whoever the new cornerbacks coach is, he's going to have a chance to go in and try to add some guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they just add, a couple more secondary guys, whether that's cornerback or just somewhere in the secondary, just to kind of round out this class. Now, aside from that, in the transfer portal, there's other positions, right tackle, maybe add a defense lineman that we could talk about, but that's pretty much set on that end. But I do have some news for the 2026 class. I reported this earlier on SIGM 365. Lots of people have been at the Navy All-American game practices, and composite four-star prospect Jordan Clay out of San Antonio Madison he's one of the prospects in this competition. He's going to be playing in this football game tomorrow. He is down between right now Texas and Baylor. He's going to take visits to other places, but those are his top two schools right now. I got to talk to him today after practice, and he's really excited about what he saw from Baylor at the end of the year, the offense's changes and success. His relationship with Dallas Baker has been very key. So that's just one thing to keep an eye on. Obviously, for Baylor to land a guy, kind of of that build like they did in this last class, Jordan Clay definitely fits that, and he's a guy that's definitely a top priority guy. And right now, Baylor and Texas, the top two schools.
Last thing, Grayson, thanks for your time today. Big 12 basketball. Iowa State is obviously incredibly good. They hammered Baylor as expected, in fact, last weekend. Kansas is really good. They've played with their foot a little bit. And then Houston is kind of coming around, and they've had to go through some injuries, but they got what they got, and it looks pretty good doing it. Baylor, a little bit of a soft start. They have Arizona State on the road. No game's easy. They beat, of course, Utah to start, just hammered Cincinnati at home, and they were ranked 16th at one point, and they got smoked by Iowa State. Your thoughts about where Baylor is, and will Langston Love ever play more than one or two games in a row?
This is one of the weirdest starts to the season for this Baylor team, because they're doing a really good job against teams that are similar in talent-wise, so somewhere in that 10 to 25 range. They're doing really good against those teams. Anyone below that, they've been kind of running out of the gym if you're below that. And then you look at when they play really good teams, and specifically when they play on the road, they have had so many problems. And just getting, the problem is these games aren't competitive. So it makes you think, when they go to the NCAA tournament and play a really good team, what's that going to look like? You'd like to say this prepares you for that, but they need to show more fight than going on the road and losing by 20 to Iowa State. Like, they have to find it somewhere in the middle, make these games more competitive as the season progresses. They have opportunities for that, specifically against Houston a little bit later in the year, and of course against Arizona as well. I think that's going to be a tough environment. But I think in general, this Baylor team is one of those teams where, they could finish somewhere between, probably 3 or 4 all the way to 8 in the Big 12. And I don't think they can finish higher than that, at least at the moment. I just don't think you're going to be able to pass specifically Iowa State and Houston. So maybe they could get to 3, but it just seems like that's going to be a very tough ask. As far as Langston Love goes, I think he's the difference maker in whether this team can really reach their goals. potentially compete in the Big 12 championship picture, potentially compete in the Big 12 tournament, and then, of course, competing in the NCAA tournament. They need someone like him. His size, his experience, his leadership, his ability on defense. It's something they absolutely need, but they only need that if he can get 100% healthy. Yeah. And if he can't get that, it's going to be hard for him to get on the court. It's going to be hard for him to play. So you might as well just continue to kind of pace things out until he's 100% healthy, because we know when he is, he's an absolute X factor for this team.
Yeah, I remember when they had to go through the constant just what will L.J. Cryer be able to do tonight, you know? And it kind of seems like the same thing on the different personalities and maybe reasons. But thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend, Grayson. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Grayson Grunhay for Bearcast with Craig on Tuesdays. And then also his the premium section of SicEm365.com if you're a Baylor fan, loaded with a lot of different nuggets and tidbits and visits and all that other good stuff on recruiting at either the portal and or even at the high school level. When we come back, I mentioned the Carson Beck story, committed to play at Miami. That was almost a given. His girlfriend, Cavender, is down there playing for the University of Miami. But some of the backstory, like when this thing came out yesterday, my question was, I thought he was turning pro. That's part of the story. The other question was, well, if he's not, then why would he not stay at Georgia? That's part of the story. The connection to Miami. They're very aggressive when it comes to quarterbacks, Cam Ward, etc. We'll discuss that and get into some of what was written about him and about the story of him now leaving Georgia for Miami. And this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club inside of McLean Stadium. The Baylor Club right now with the opportunity, if you tell them, if you contact them to go try to have a meal, to maybe just look around, see what they have, a proud partner of what we do at SicEm 365 and also at 365 Sports. Excited to offer listeners and viewers exclusive deals. Ask for the SicEm 365 membership application and receive 2 months of free membership. Stop by the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium for a complimentary SicEm 365 VIP tour. Also, book a membership lunch by calling the number or dropping in at that particular time. These offers are exclusively for those of you who are watching or also listening to what we do on 365 Sports. The Baylor Club, Mike Mosel, the general manager, and so many great people. We host our annual Academic All-Stars banquet inside of one of their beautiful rooms. Special events, even if you want talking about weddings or rehearsal dinners or business meetings or symposiums or guest speaker type things. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium off I-35 in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We will hear from Roger Wallace, University of Texas football color analyst Craig Way. That will come up in this hour. We'll also hear from Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix. By the way, the young phenom Emery Winter in the studio today, helping to put things together for 365 Sports tonight on the CW. And Garrett Ross, who's taken a beating today, despite that, continues to produce what we do on this show. Paul is here too, along with me. We're just two guys. That's what we are. Craig is also as a part of the show. Craig sent this link, an article by, what was it, Matt. These are three guys we've had on the show, Chris Hummer, Matt Zenitz, and Brandon Marcello. Inside Carson Beck's transfer, the quiet tension behind the Georgia departure, and what may come next. Georgia, I think, was ready to probably move on, but this is the part that really blew me away. A member of Carson Beck's camp gave Kirby Smart a heads up only shortly before the news leaked on Thursday afternoon. That means that there was a little bit of, like they said, some tension in this deal.
Well, I mean, you don't leave. If you're going to stay, you don't just say you're going to go to the draft, and then if you are not going to go to the draft, then why wouldn't you go back to, an infinitely better situation unless there was some tension, right?
Where else besides Georgia and maybe 5 other schools, and maybe Miami's a part of that or is about to be, are you going to win more than there?
Well, and again, Miami's to be determined. Mario Cristobal just had his first good year there, and it wasn't great on defense. It was good because of Cam Ward. So, what's more of a sure thing, Miami or Georgia? Well, it's Georgia. And he knew that, so, yeah, there had to be some tension there if he's just going to leave like that. And if there was no real effort to, oh, really, you don't want to come back here? They're good with Gunnar Stockton and the guys that are coming in and Ryan Pulisic. So tells me a lot about how that relationship's gone.
I just thought it was weird. And then if you read the story, it was weird. It just seems like – and nothing, though, can surprise you anymore, right? Nothing can surprise you anymore. He's going to get $4 million. That's the report. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Good for him. Fox affiliate in Miami reporting that he got $4 million. Will Levis, $950,000 with the Titans.
I'm not sure he earned that $950.
Yeah, he did. He earned it.
I think a little overpaid if you were talking about performance.
Was that a slotted number for him based on where he was picked?
Second first or second pick of the second round when he was picked there by the Titans. But yeah, Carson Beck in Miami. Here's the thing that Miami had in his corner: 1, his girlfriend goes there; 2, his girlfriend goes there; 3, his girlfriend goes there; 4,
I had no idea that he was dating one of those twins.
Not until yesterday. I had no idea until yesterday. Cool, I guess. But 4 and 5 both is that they are desperate for a quarterback and will overpay. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be bad, but they have the best bargaining position of any, the worst bargaining position of all that because, he had already declared for the draft. Whatever the scouts say or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But bottom line, he's got, he had all the negotiating power with them when it came to, all right, it's me, or let's go down the list of all the people you've missed on before you get to some available guys in the portal.
Yeah, this is something that's just so it's not really weird anymore, right? Because it's going to happen probably again between now and who knows, the next week or two. Do you guys think that?
Well, let's get into some of the details of the story that are interesting.
Well, I got quiet there for a second, thinking you were going to.
No, I thought you were going to lead into what they were talking about. So, like, for example, the $4 million, like that, I think they would talk about that more towards the end, but that just seems like it's a going rate for a quarterback, especially a guy who was the starting quarterback at Georgia and who's playing for an SEC championship and who was not the best this year, but has been very good at other times. I think, a guy like that, is probably commanding around $4 million, and we all know the desperation in Miami to win a national championship, and they're going to pony up probably more than anybody. So between those two sides of what he's accomplished and the lack of other options in the portal, and then the other side, you've got a thirsty university with big pockets that need a quarterback, want a quarterback. Yeah, it's going to be an expensive proposition most likely, so $4 million makes a lot of sense. I don't think that's all that's surprising. The Cavender thing, I didn't even know. I don't follow any of those like younger folks on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok because I don't follow any of that crowd. I know her because she's an athlete, and her sister obviously as well. But I had no idea that was a part of this. But, yeah, that clearly makes a lot of sense in this being a destination for him, is his girlfriend being there. Of course, he's a young college kid. What's he chasing? Money and you know what. So, yeah, he got both in South Beach.
I mean, look, Athens is no slouch when it comes to the ladies, but also, I mean, it's a famous lady that you're dating, so
yeah, no, it's definitely. I mean, I might prefer Athens actually in that crop of girls. It might just my personal taste. I don't know. I'd have to go on my visits, right, and see. But if I already had a girl who was at a place, then yeah, I mean, wherever she was, if it was Clemson or any other place, I'm sure that would have been an attraction for him. But yeah, between $4 million and you get to be alongside your girlfriend, Miami makes all the sense in the world when you also add in their ability to pay that $4 million, their desire to land a big-time quarterback. Yeah, it makes sense, and that's why I think it happened so quickly. We heard the rumors about, or the report, let's say, they had Texas Tech mentioned in every site's report yesterday. Now, to what extent Texas Tech was actually interested is debatable. I know they've kind of almost pushed back on that.
I would almost be willing to bet that is, seeing how much money they're just throwing out there, that might be his agent. Especially, okay, if you look at who the other two schools, Texas Tech and Ohio State. Ohio State spent $20 million on the roster. Texas Tech is spending like a coked-up frat boy right now for the portal. And so what happens when there's NFL free agents out there? Like, oh, man, what a great fit for the Cowboys. I wouldn't be surprised if that was also – hey, I mean, he can go to Miami or Ohio State or Texas Tech, Miami, just as fast. He can put her on a jet and bring her over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, definitely something you do is you throw out the Yankees or the Dodgers or whatever. But I also think, me personally, I think Texas Tech's also looking to upgrade a quarterback if they possibly
Well, here's one of the things about Baron Morton. And, we have a lot of Red Raider fans, Katie Raider and obviously Kim Coulter, Old Lubbock and all that Baron Morton does have some issues with injuries, and so and unfortunately for Tech, a lot of their quarterbacks have over the last several years.
I'll put it this way: I'm sure part of it was his agent throwing something out. I'm sure part of it was them just trying to get Tech involved to get their name, and the fact that they are big spenders. I'm sure there is an element to that. I also think there's absolutely, even if it's under 5% of a chance of it actually happening or even going a direction, I absolutely think they reached out or at least received interest and said,
even
let's kick the tires on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think they're sold all the way on Baron Morton. I think now after yesterday you're having to act that way because now it's like, wait a second, are y'all not sold on Baron Morton? Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's a little bit of probably damage control going on of they weren't supposed to know that we were looking around at possibly bringing in another guy. That's my opinion. Just based on the fact that I don't think they're just randomly mentioned because they have a lot of money. I think there had to – and now it might have been them reaching out to Texas Tech.
Yeah, and they might have thrown Texas Tech's name into it, which is a compliment because they've been so busy and aggressive in the portal.
Well, so why
that's
not? What Paul and I just said.
Why not? By the way, Kim Coulter's saying that he heard the number was $750,000. Kim, of course, a Texas alum, and a couple other guys saying they don't really think that Tech had that much interest. Now, we also know that he's picked Miami, so maybe you don't want to show that there was interest. But like you were saying that as we went into this discussion.
Yeah, and it doesn't even really matter, but just my opinion is, and because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether they did or it doesn't. The only person that matters to is Baron Morton. But in my opinion, I don't think they got mentioned just because they're spending a lot of money. I think that, if anything, like we talked about with Max yesterday, he's bringing up, they talked to Quinn Ewers, right? Like when Joey first took over. If you can go upgrade your roster, are you not trying to upgrade your roster? Mm-hmm. Are you going to tell me that he's not a better quarterback based on what we've seen than Baron Morton? I think there's a case that he is. Now, I also think you can make a case that he's not good enough to replace Baron Morton. So it depends on the eye of the beholder. But I definitely think Texas Tech might have kicked the tires on it and then either didn't find it interesting enough, didn't find it to be what they wanted, and they moved on. But, yeah, I mean, the Miami thing obviously was very quick decision-making.
Kim is saying zero interest. You know, he's a Tech guy, and he knows a lot of the business there. Zero interest. And, of course, we'll see if that story ever changes along the way. If I'm an agent, I'm going to throw out a couple of names on purpose, though. You're right, as far as if they had interest or not. A couple of things about Beck. He arrived in New Orleans for the day of for the Sugar Bowl game a day later than his teammates. Skipped the team's media day. One of the NFL directors of college scouting made this comment about Beck saying he's going to go back to college as a great decision. He should help himself because obviously this was not a year where Carson Beck by any means was in that upper echelon of quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can help himself like Cam Ward did. Cam, a lot of people thought he was a mid-round pick last year, and now he's probably going to be the second pick. I mean, you know, I think it's going to be Shadur and Cam, or Cam and Shadur. He might be first or second pick. So he helped himself. Maybe Shannon Dawson's offense can help Carson Beck the same way. He's not nearly as athletic as Cam Ward is, but he's got a very strong arm. He's an elite passer when it comes to the arm strength and talent. He's very streaky, and he's coming off UCL surgery. So it's a little bit of a different gamble that they're taking Miami-wise than they were with Cam Ward last year. It's actually a way bigger gamble, in my opinion.
Kim says that he would take Baron Morton over Carson Beck.
That's fine. I said I don't really have a straw. I was just saying I think that there might have been some level of here's an assistant to the assistant, the DMs, and said, hey, would there be an interest here? That's all I'm saying. If Tech didn't have interest, that's fine. If you think that, and I think I just said, I think Carson Beck would be a better quarterback, albeit slightly over Baron Morton, but it's in the eye of the beholder. So if you feel differently like him, then I totally get that. I think it's negligible, the difference, so that's why it was surprising to see Texas Tech to begin with. I just don't believe they're like all in, like thinking that Baron Morton's the greatest thing walking this earth. I feel like if you feel like you can get better, then you at least kick the tires on it. And so maybe that's what they did, and they very quickly realized, no, we're not interested. Maybe his people reached out. I don't care. He's going to Miami at this point.
And he was
but
probably
Texas Tech wasn't mentioned for no reason.
Yeah, and he was probably always going to Miami.
Right.
But, yeah.
So they were mentioned. We can move on from that. They've got Baron Morton. They're totally set, and they're great. But, yeah, I mean, there was a very quick decision made. So clearly the $4 million and his girlfriend, like, that's all it took. And so for whatever level Ohio State was interested or whatever level Texas Tech or whatever level, he didn't give many teams time to even think about it because he moved in 24 hours. So this seems like it was pretty well set up. And for whatever reasons others were mentioned, I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, there's no having to figure things out because he's made his decision so quick. So there he is. He's the replacement for Cam Ward. And, you know, for Ohio State, I guess they'll have to look elsewhere. And for anybody else looking for a quarterback, they'll have to look elsewhere. But for a brief second there, he was a hot name, and it didn't take long for that to get scooped up.
By the way, this is a story from 247 with Chris Hummer, Matt Zeditz, and Brandon Marcella. We're kind of chewing up on some of it. Last thing, and then we got to break and come back with a couple of more guests, including Roger Wallace and Scott Drew and Dave Bartu. Who's going to be the starting quarterback when Georgia starts the year next year? You think it's going to be Gunnar Stockton?
I absolutely think it's going to be Gunnar Stockton.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he didn't do anything to make me think like, oh dear God, I'm afraid of Gunnar Stockton.
Like, I feel like he played pretty okay.
He played pretty okay.
I thought the way he came in against Texas saved the game.
Exactly,
because that could have gone south.
I mean,
quickly.
It's not like he's some bum two-star general off the streets. Like, the dude was highly rated in his own right, not a top 5-star or anything, but he's clearly a talented player. So I thought when I watched him, I was like, yeah, I could see him being the next quarterback. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clearly Gunnar Stockton. I think the way he played at the end made them even more assured in their minds of like, yeah, if we move on from Carson Beck or he moves on from us or we mutually end this relationship, that we feel good about Gunnar Stockton. I think that's the big message coming out of UGA is they feel good about not just him but the room they have, and this isn't like some big loss for them, nor is it the end of the world for Carson Beck either. So, both parties can just move on and end what was kind of like a tumultuous little relationship there, especially towards the end with him receiving a lot of the blame for what ailed them.
Carson Beck did not have the year. Quinn Ewers, of course, was a name that was up for the Heisman. He's in the semifinals, and who knows? He's maybe could only help himself when it comes to the draft based on how he finished against Arizona State and what he does against an Ohio State team tonight at AT&T Stadium. Coming up, Roger Wallace on that game, Dave Bartu from College Football Matrix on that game, Garrett Ross and Emery Winter, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak, and this is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com and the Duvall family just outside of Tyler with their farm-raised Angus beef, Angus cattle. They just finished up another auction. BidOnBeef.com is where they were, of course, giving you the opportunity to buy Wagyu steaks. Big boy, premium quality, from their pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com. So there will be more auctions. They just wrapped one up that ended. And so go to BidOnBeef.com or TexasBeefHouse.com, and they will have the dates coming up when they will do another live auction. And what it is, it starts like in the morning. A couple of days later, by 6 or 7, it wraps up. You can get in and bid on certain lots. Lots are whether steak and hamburger beef or both. And you get to say, okay, I'm going to bid this per pound. And then if you bid it and somebody else outbids you, you'll get an alert. Hey, by the way, you've been outbid. Then you go back in again if you want. You buy the beef, Angus cattle, Wagyu beef, at what you want to buy it. It gives you the opportunity to make the purchase on the money you want to spend at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Kiren Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Kiren Solutions. For more info, email sales@KirenSolutions.com or visit KirenSolutions.com. That's CARRION Solutions.com. Kiren Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Roger Wallace, University of Texas color analyst. Football tonight, Ohio State, Texas, and AT&T Stadium in Arlington. My goodness, this is a showdown collision course. Roger, how would you compare? Texas is a part of big games. They've had Georgia twice. But how would you compare this game, the build-up to this game, since they last played?
Yeah, it's been interesting, David. This whole playoff, I think we're all kind of trying to figure out the rhythm to it because it's so different. But it feels strange because, you know, there's no students on campus. There's none of that energy at UT. And it's just, you know, one game to the next game. And so it's been a little bit different. It's more like the buildup is right before the game, not the slow buildup. And obviously everybody had to catch their breath after that Arizona State game. And then it's, you know, you're still coming off the holiday. But, you know, clearly this program feels like this is where they should be. But still, you have to really appreciate the run that they've made to get to the Final Four and beat a good Clemson team, even though they looked like they were going to handle them easily, and it got dicey. And then obviously we know what happened with Arizona State. But now, you know, maybe the best roster in college football from the start of the season is who they're facing tonight.
So this is my theory, and I think some other people have felt this way. When Texas was really good, they would still come up with ways to kind of have a chip on their shoulder, as if, for example, of course, 05 USC, the unbeatable team that, you know, would never lose a game, and all the rock stars, and we know what happened. And I'm not trying to compare this to that, but even when Texas struggled throughout most of the time at the end of Mac Brown, Charlie Strong, Tom Herman with an occasional year or two, it seems like they're pretty good about creating a chip us against the world mentality. Have you seen that this week?
Well, yeah, Sark brought up a couple of times that, you know, clearly we're, you know, you use the term massive underdog, and it's a 6-point line. But I think people think because of the way Texas beat Arizona State and the way Ohio State has just run roughshod over Tennessee and then Oregon, that has set the stage for people think this could get away from Texas. So sure, he's going to use all that. The fact that kind of what I said earlier, that many people thought before the season, Ohio State had the best roster in the country, top to bottom, and now they're really playing like that. So, yeah, they're using all that. And the fact that it's in North Texas, you know, that's cool. But, you know, David, as well as I do, Ohio State's going to have their share of fans inside AT&T tonight. It's not going to feel like a Texas home game, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, Ohio State and Texas, those are two programs, and there's maybe 3 to 5 others that when they look across the table at each other, there are two superpowers, right? With the tradition, the Heismans, the titles, and all of that involved, the power, the clout.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that uniform thing, right, David? You know, there's certain uniforms you look at and you just kind of think, okay, that's kind of college football royalty. Now, granted, Texas has not been part of that, you know, prior to last year for a long time, but in the grand scheme of things for old guys like us, yes, for sure. This is one of those marquee matchups, kind of like last night. You know, that was more of a 70s game, I think, when what you're talking about with Notre Dame, Penn State, than now, where they have crazy athletes on both sides of the ball and they're not just, you know, slogging it out. But yeah, I mean, the college football playoffs got to love now this Final Three, because you're going to get some kind of championship matchup, either Texas and Notre Dame or Ohio State and Notre Dame, more of a regional thing with Ohio State and Notre Dame. I get it. But it's pretty good. And for Texas, you know, for Sark to get them back here where, you know, they were supposed to be here, but you know how that goes. There's no guarantees that you're going to do what you're supposed to do. So, yeah, this is a big step. And, you know, it's a transition time at UT. A new president's coming in. We're having to deal with whispers of you know, Sark's future. And so obviously tonight could be a very interesting and a swing night one way or another for this program.
There are times Texas has just run through people with the offense, with the running back, with Whit Weisner, who we covered when he was at Conley before he moved to DeSoto, a phenomenal talent. And then, of course, Jaden Blue has had issues with fumbles, but still another explosive back. They could not run the ball against Arizona State. Not a chance. They never did. What are your thoughts about what is that tonight against Ohio State, and how important is it to at least establish something in the run game?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be tougher if you just go by the paper. 92 yards a game is what Ohio State's giving it. My guess is Sark's going to come out with some kind of script, a Bill Walsh script, where he's going to get Quinn Ewers in rhythm, and they've got to get the pass game going to the point where then the play action works and the run game can sting them a little bit. But I just think it's not realistic to think they're going to be able to push Ohio State around consistently. Maybe they pop one. They had the big running numbers against Clemson, but Blue ran for 77 on one play, right. So that changes things a little bit. But I think this has got to be a Quinn Ewers night against this Ohio State defense, unless they just really get them on their heels.
And how much do you feel how Ewers played in that game against Arizona State helps him entering this game with Ohio State? We know he's thrown a hickey up on occasion, but man, he was nuts, nails, bolts, whatever you want to call it, at the end against Arizona State.
Yeah, how about his last 3 touches? Think about that. 4th and 13, he throws the touchdown to Golden over the top. Next play is next possession. He throws that seam touchdown to Gunnar Helm, and then he gets the 2-point conversion to Golden. So his last 3 throws were pretty impressive under some pretty high stakes. But yeah, he's got a tendency, and this Ohio State defense is going to make life tough on him, no doubt. That front 7. But I think maybe Texas can do the same to Will Howard. Will Howard, yep. He gets hit once or twice by Texas, and maybe some of those demons come back in his head about the last 4 times that he faced the Longhorns. So it'll be interesting to see who can strike first. And if Texas, I think the big trouble for Texas if they get some separation, if Ohio State gets a little separation, then I think things could really go south for Texas if they can't do something offensively to keep this thing close.
Last thing I think about with Will Howard in Texas was the game at Austin in 23, when K-State was about to maybe sever their chance to play in the college football playoff. Remember that game, I believe, went into overtime, and it just seemed like Will Howard in that last possession with Tavondre Sweat, Murphy, or whatever, it just seemed like he just panicked in that moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to put a little on Chris Kleiman. He goes for the touchdown. He goes for the win. They could kick the field goal and go, double overtime. Texas only kicked the field goal. And then they run that 4th down play, and it was something where Jahdae Barron, there's a great angle of it from the backside, and you can see Jahdae Barron. He was playing the star, and he read Howard, and he knew the play. And then, Howard was in panic mode when the pocket collapsed. Barron Sorrell, I think, was in on it as well. But there are a lot of moments like that, David, over that year and this year where things could have collapsed for Texas. If they don't get the 4th down stop against Clemson, then who knows how that game goes. There was plenty of time, and all of a sudden momentum swings, and ASU obviously was. But ASU was such a crazy game because Scadaboo was such a unicorn in that second half.
Yeah, it looked like he was going to end up with.
He audibilized on a halfback pass, for goodness sakes.
It was like he's going to have 22 carries for 44 yards and nothing, and the next thing you know, and that was the thing. I didn't think anyone could really run on Texas. We obviously know that Ohio State's got a great run game too with their weapons, Henderson and Moore. Was that surprising for you? Because Arizona State did not panic. Now, they had the flea flicker, but it's not like they panicked when they couldn't run the ball early. They stayed patient, and it paid off, and they wore down that defense in the end.
Yeah, and he's the kind of guy, he's just going to – inevitably he's going to pop one. And I think going back to Texas, I think that's what they're kind of banking on with Blue and Wisner to a certain degree is maybe you don't run it consistently, but if you can just pop a couple – to get some big plays, but then they run the fake punt, and that they had to do some things like that, or it was going to get away from them, and it worked, and then things got a little crazy at the end, but yeah, and Henderson and Judkins are different than Scadaboo, but some of their differences is more dangerous because of how explosive they are, but that dude is as tough as it gets, and he kind of willed Arizona State into having a chance to win that ball game, I think.
What's it been like there in Arlington? I know that the weather's been a big topic, and there's been some snow, and it looks like it's not going to be nearly as what everyone thought. Game time just around the corner. What's it been like, and what's been kind of the mood in Arlington?
It's funny, and it goes back to what I said earlier. I think they're ready to play again.
Yeah.
I think even though, it's just a little bit more than a regular week, but, they don't have a lot of media obligations. They do a lot of virtual stuff before they get here. And then one thing, but I think they feel like they've been in and out of road trips now since late November, when you take into consideration the SEC championship game, and then, coming home for Clemson, obviously, but then going back to Atlanta. And now here, even though this is just up the road, it's a road trip. It's the same amount of time. It's being away. It's being in a hotel. So it's so different than the bowl season. And I was talking to a lot of people about, I can't imagine doing a week leading up to these games like we used to do for bowl games.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just feels like it's forever in between games. And they played, on New Year's Day. So 9 days ago they played, but it just feels like, I think everybody's got to get their feet under them on this playoff. And, think about the media trying to follow their teams around, like the Columbus media. They've been to the Rose Bowl, and now they're here. And if they win, they got to go to Atlanta and all that stuff. But it's been a little bit taxing.
I would say, and I'll close it out with this, and I have a question about Sark, but I would think that, we have had Baylor when they've had some teams like 2021, had that been a playoff type year, and it was, but as far as 12, we were at the Sugar Bowl, and it might have been something else before that, then the Big 12 championship game, of course, in Arlington. I can see where that is, one, budgetary-wise, something no one's ever really had to deal with before, and we talk about the attrition of the football team. Why has Sark been the one that put Texas back in a position to where they are compared to that decade or so of just kind of floundering?
I think it's a combination. I think, first of all, what he knows offensively, and, he can work with quarterbacks and offense. But I think it's what he's learned both under Nick Saban and in the NFL, how to, put together an organization. And what a kind of perfect time to have that guy, the way college football has changed into a mini professional organization where you have a staff now. People don't even realize how many people are on a football staff in a college football program right now, with the analysts and, the personnel. You've got a general manager. You've got scouting. You're going to have people in charge of, NIL money distribution and revenue sharing and things like that. So I think he's been kind of the perfect guy to take Texas into this new era of college football. And I think because of his background, he has appreciated his chance. And I think, he thinks about Nick Saban and Pete Carroll and what they did to him and wanting to follow in their footsteps, because he reminds every day of what they've meant to him and how different they are. And in the end, they end up in the same place. And he talks about consistency. And that kind of goes back to an NFL model, where you treat everybody like pros. And I think it's just worked. And then, he's a good coach, and he's hired good coaches, and he's gotten good players. I think he's done the portal in a way that's been a little bit different, where he plugs it.
Yep.
He's still got so many kids that he's developed, but he's had some important plugs, and he hasn't had to get on the quarterback merry-go-round in the portal. Doesn't look like he will next year, obviously. But then what happens? I mean, look at Ohio State. What happens with Will Howard? What happens with a lot of programs that have been Notre Dame's going to have to replace Riley Leonard probably. So, that's the thing that I just think he's been the right guy at the right time, and what a gamble it was, when they made that choice.
No question. Raj, I know you're busy as heck, buddy. Have a great broadcast tonight. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
It's always good to talk to you, David. Take care.
Roger Wallace, UT Radio on 365 Sports. Yeah, Roger, again, will be there tonight, AT&T Stadium in Arlington. He said it's different because there's really not like a lot of build-up like you have in a bowl week when there's media days and all that stuff. It goes on for 2, 3, 4 days. Maybe next week with the college championship game in Atlanta, Georgia. Our great friend, the maestro of how all this works and why. Man, he is like full of himself, Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix. And I'm sending this segment to your friend Pat McAfee to try to make sure he understands why you are the one. Dave, you're nailing this. I love watching your feed about who gets where and why and all this. So Notre Dame, Penn State, great game, could have gone either way. But in the end, the analytics show, right, that Notre Dame was going to be the one that advances.
look, I've been saying this for how long? I've been on your show for years and doing this all over the country. The number one thing when we are grading coaches, okay, specifically offense and defensive coordinators, the number one thing is scoring efficiency. It is a scoreboard. It's not a yards board. Anybody listening that says, hey, I was hearing this guy talk about yards per whatever, dude, anybody says yards, I shut it off because it comes down to scoring. And right now, through 9 games in the playoffs, the better team in the regular season in scoring efficiency, total team scoring efficiency, straight up 9-0. The team that was better at scoring and stopping scoring is winning every single game in the playoffs. And wow, guess what? Ohio State on the year, better than Texas. So, if Ohio State wins out, that will be 11-0 in scoring efficiency. And it's just an example of why we use it all the time to grade coaches as we're building staffs.
Dave, you also mentioned the recruiters that these staffs have. Great, the Brian Hartline's on Ohio State. I almost feel like you could take the rest of them off and he's going to be plus, right? They're still going to be plus. He could be the only one doing it. Does it, when you watch this, because they've got the recruiting on lock, they've got all of that, is this make it maybe more fun for you to watch because you're looking at, okay, who just makes the mistake in this game as opposed to who's overmatched here and maybe stumbled their way in?
I don't know if it's more fun to watch because when I'm watching it, I'm biased, right? That's one of the problems. See, because back in July, I went through the list of every team that checked the boxes for a national championship contender when it came to staffing and recruiting. Okay, there was only 5 teams that had 2023 numbers, 2024 staffing, 2024 top 10 recruiting. It was Oregon, it was Georgia, it was Ohio State, it was Notre Dame, and it was Texas. Those were in July. I said those were your 5 national championship contenders because they match the last 25 years of national championship winners. It's that simple, coaching and recruiting. So when I'm watching a game last night like Notre Dame, I see Penn State as a Cinderella. And so there's part of me as a fan that goes, wow, I really hope Penn State wins this game simply because they're trying to do something no team at their coaching level, at their recruiting level, at their year-to-date performance level has ever done to win a national title. But then the other part of me is like, yeah, well, I said Notre Dame would be in it, and I'm right. So, it's kind of like, an angel on one side and the devil on the other. But no, it's great to be right in the numbers and tell the stories. But as a data guy, I go back to the board to try to make myself better, trying to understand what the data is telling us.
Yeah, and the couple of notes for those who have not seen his feed, and you should, it's at CFB Matrix. Penn State was trying to become the 8th team in 25 years to play in the title game without top 10 level high school recruiting in some of the matrix or the analytics you talked about. And then only 2 of the last 25, is that right, that have won it? Or is it 2 of the last 25? What was that note?
Okay. So of the last 25, actually the last 26, because there's going to be a top 10 high school recruiter. Right. And the reason I say high school recruiter is I'm not using transfer portal numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's high school recruiting is still driving this thing big time. What's opened the door to level the playing field was the transfer portal, but then they expanded the playoffs. And now all those high talented teams, now they have mulligans. Ohio State got a mulligan. Ohio State wouldn't be playing this game last year. Texas wouldn't be playing this game last year. So it gave the big guys that they lost, but they get to go do another one. And so talent is going to eventually win those things. But ultimately with what we're seeing on the high school recruiting is, yes, the last 26 national champions, 24 of them have been a top 10 high school recruiter over the last 4 years. 24 of 26. So the only exceptions, Clemson with first round pick Deshaun Watson, and Michigan last year with first-round quarterback pick J.J. McCarthy. So other than that, it's all been high school recruiting at an elite level is one of the boxes to check off if you're going to compete for a national title. And now that it's expanded, I think it gives the big guys more opportunity, not less, to win it all.
By the way, Dave, when that question was asked of you in July of this year by Sean O'Connell about how many teams have a realistic chance of winning the national title, you listed this. This was back in July when you responded to them. So it's not like you just made this stuff up in the last couple of weeks. You've been telling us, like you said, for years about this. Paul?
So then but we are seeing more parity. It's just when it gets down to this part of the season where you got to play 4 more games, is it about the depth, the high school recruiting, and those kind of things that still separates the Ohio States from the SMUs?
Yeah, it is, and it's also overall performance. Right? What's the old adage? Hard work beats talent. Unless the talent works hard. Every top 10 recruiter is not going to work hard, right? We have bad culture. We have bad coaching. We have certain things that just the cream doesn't rise to the top. But if all it takes is a couple of them to do it, and right now we have that. We have Notre Dame is top 10, Ohio State's top 10, Texas is top 10. And then with that comes the performance. Now, the other thing we are about to see at the national championship game, this is one of the more astounding things, is how I talked about scoring efficiency? All right. To me, elite scoring efficiency is top 3 in the country, not top 4, not top 5, not top 10. For 26 consecutive years, is top 3 in offense and or defensive scoring efficiency, is going to win the national title again. Okay? Ohio State, number 1, Texas, number 2, Notre Dame, number 3. We have never in 26 years had a team 4th or worse win a national title off of regular season performance. So Georgia, outside the top 20 in offense, outside the top 35 in defense, they were out in the numbers. Oregon, they weren't even in the top 5 in anything. They were out. But if we had the old playoff system, actually, if we had the BCS playoff system, we'd have had Oregon and Georgia. We would have had an unbelievable trend break by 2 teams that have vastly underperformed previous national champions. Now that it's expanded, I keep going back to this, it's mulligans for great teams, and Ohio State and Texas have certainly taken advantage of that.
Yeah, Texas with the losses to Georgia, Ohio State with that, what still didn't make sense loss, although the rivalry with Michigan. When you watch a game, can you watch it as a fan, or do you watch it as your brain's just going?
Try to fan, and in full disclosure, 2 things. I try not to watch a lot of it, and I know that sounds really strange from somebody in college football, but when I watch it, I will get things in my head that shouldn't be there in terms of telling the story. When I do watch it, I try to watch it on mute so I don't listen to the narrative, because the narrative will screw up what the numbers are saying, going for it on 4th down, going for 2. There's a ton of things that they talk about that will mess with your mind that are completely untrue. So when I watch as a fan, I can turn it off pretty good. But normally the biggest difference is I try not to listen what other people are saying because it really can mess with how I try to interpret data.
Yes, like evidence, facts, things like that. Yeah, well, like the logistics. What's the word when they have when you're at a crime scene? What are the evidence?
Forensics.
Forensics.
Yeah,
Right.
the
Forensics. Yeah.
Forensics. Right.
Hey,
We're reading the tea leaves, because that's all I'm doing when I'm predicting these things. I'm just simply telling a story of what the data is trying to say. So remember I was on your show and I said Baylor was going to win out?
Yep, you did.
Right? They were going to win 4 in a row. Why? Because when you look at the scoring efficiencies of all the teams that they had left on the season and the arc of the offense, it said it wasn't really my prediction. I was just reading the data saying a team on this kind of run with this kind of scoring efficiency should win out. Now, is it always right? Heck no. If it was, I wouldn't even be on the show right now, because it'd be perfect and I'd be cashing big checks.
Yep.
But the goal is to reduce risk in trying to forecast. or guess what's going to happen in the story. So as far as the national championship has gone, anybody that's followed me on Twitter for the last 12 years, they've been pretty wise about what's about to happen every single year before the season even starts.
At CFB Matrix, Dave Bartu, our great friend. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. I know it's a busy night. Enjoy it. We'll have another segment with you, maybe the national championship week in a week and a half. Thank you.
Appreciate you, David. Thank you.
David Bartu, Dave Bartu, great guy, great friend of ours. Last time he joined us, he was walking around his neighborhood up in what is it, Seattle?
Yeah, he's in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. So appreciate that. His co-founder, Premier Staffing Analytics, he does get major information on staffing, and some schools, and there's a more chunk of them you think, contact him based on his analytics and staffing efficiency, based on coaches, where they are, what they've done, what positions they coach, etc. All right, in the 5 o'clock hour, we will hear from Kenneth Davis. He covers the Big Ten. Of course, they're out, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. They were out from last night because Penn State lost.
50% of them are.
Ohio State's still involved. Also, Scott Drew, Baylor plays in Tempe tomorrow against Arizona State. And also Paul Catalina's top 5. Let me do this before we hit the 5 o'clock hour, and I know we're a little bit into it. I asked everybody for some predictions on the game. Let's give you a chance. Steve, Ohio State 31-24. Kim, Texas 31-28. Double O'Neill 35-10, the Nuts. Sandra Green with the Hook'em side, 28-13 Texas. Also, this is from Texas's Toast tonight. This is from Double O'Neill. Kyle Visser, 30-26. So no way Texas loses if Smokey said it. I'm just telling you, I'm making the prediction that Texas wins, and this is not out of disrespect for either team. I think it's going to be, I hope it's a great game. It's a game that has, in my history of following UT, really, really elite or even average, this kind of just has the markings of them winning this game. That's just me. Bracket Cat, Ohio State wins bigly. Paxton, 35-31 Texas. Roger, the Dodger USC fan, has it a 35-34. Roger the Dodger has Ohio State winning that game. We know what Charisse is saying. She's a huge Ohio State fan.
I think this.
I still don't know how to say her name correctly.
If Ohio State wants to win this game, they better jump out. Because if they let Texas hang around, that's when they play poorly and they coach tight, and that's when Sark can do his magic. So if they want to win this game, they better do what they did to Tennessee and Oregon and get them so discombobulated and out of their game plan that it's just over before it starts.
Craig, your thoughts?
I do think, based on what we've seen most recently, I would favor Ohio State. I don't think it's just a foregone conclusion the way that a lot of the predictions have almost felt like this week. I do think that Sark and whatever PR people around him came up with the idea, or maybe it's just him alone, to really put out that we have no shot. Imagine like Texas trying to act like they're David. Yeah. In David and Goliath, like that they are smaller than, like they're like the underdog, like just masterful PR spin by Texas this week. I talked about it yesterday. I did feel like it was a little bit overboard, the amount of Ohio State winning and winning comfortably that I saw. So it's not like there's nothing to that at all, but he's basically the one that started that earlier this week talking about the game. He like set that tone of, we're underdogs. Yep. And so it worked. It was PR masterclass. So I'm sure all week long, all they've been feeding their players is all of the Ohio State predictions and everything else. And most places I've looked, most people are picking Ohio State. I do think, based on what we've seen, they should be the favorites. I think slightly. I think if I had to put my own money on it, I'd pick Ohio State. But for my own sanity heading into this game tonight, I've got to pretend like Texas is going to win this game so I don't feel worse about it when they do win this game. So.
By the way, Texas has also blown tires when they were heavy favorites in big games, too. It's not like they always win, but this has the makings of that. The old Bearcat, OK State, 39-3 Ohio State. Oof. Show memo, Texas 27-24. I mentioned Sandra.
I do think a blowout would be surprising, like a blowout, like one way or the other. I would find that surprising, but I mean, it's possible.
Too. Both teams, if the other one blanks the bed, turns it over multiple times, muffs upon inside the 10, have a chance to jump into the business of their opponent. Garrett, you got a prediction for tonight?
Hey, I'll say real quick, though, if that turns out to be right, the blowout prediction of the one that you just read a second ago, like, hey, I'll be here on Monday to give you all the props in the world because I just don't see it being that lopsided. But, hey, if that's accurate, then we'll sing your praises come Monday because you saw something that probably a lot of other people saw coming with a blowout like that.
Garrett?
I think I'm gonna have to go with Texas. I picked Texas to win it. I think they haven't really, like a big game, really against Georgia, they haven't lived up to their expectation. This game being in the state, I'm a little concerned about their offensive line, especially Kelvin Banks and how they can hold up against Ohio State's front. But I think Texas can get it done.
From this guy named Paul Catalina in the chat room, for all Ohio State fans, in capital letters, do not talk trash. Do not trash talk Texas before the game. Talk after.
Lifelong A&M fan.
They are so good at winning when everyone thinks they will lose. They have won, 96 Nebraska, right off the top to set the tone in the Big 12. They were very much an underdog.
Against USC, like even with Vince Young, I was talking all kind of like, oh, come on. Like, yeah, Vince Young's great, but I mean, Reggie Bush, Lendale White, Matt Lyon, like, you have two Heisman Trophy winners in this other team. And then at every turn, whenever USC had a chance to put that game away,
like early,
Texas just popped up out of the ground.
Or Reggie Bush fumbled.
Yeah. You know, all that stuff that happened. So don't do it because they are the favorite so often that they just, I don't know, something happens. It's mystical. It's the football gods or the football demons. I don't know.
We're out there like they're Boise State or Indiana.
I was going to say, man, like y'all are playing right into this thing because, I mean, they didn't go win that big game last year in the semifinals, I don't think.
No, they didn't.
I don't think they won that game. I think they've lost just as many as they probably won. But, yeah, they're not an underdog traditionally or in that traditional sense of, just, they got no chance or anything like that. Like, no, I think – they are reasonably underdogs based on what we've seen from Ohio State, but I don't think it's a lack of respect like it's been trying to get spun this week or that they're going to get blown out or any of that nonsense. I think it's going to be a great game, and if there's a blowout like a couple people predicted, then we'll be here on Monday talking about why it was and how surprising that it was. Either way, I think Texas blowing out Ohio State would be the most shocking outcome possible, followed by Ohio State blowing out Texas. But, yeah, it's until we see them roll the ball out there, who the hell knows? But, I would not be feeling like Texas is David and Goliath by any stretch of the imagination. They more than carry their own weight, and this is two heavyweights. I expect something similar to last night, just maybe not stylistically the same, but a back and forth, changes by the round kind of game. That's kind of what I'm expecting.
If it's anything as like it was last night, my God, it will be fun to see if any of you can sleep if your team wins, if you're a UT fan. And I'm thinking about y'all like Sandra, what's his name? Oh, golly, I just went blank. Obviously, Paxton and many others of you that are in the chat room. And then if you're an Ohio State fan like Charisse, good luck to you too. 42-36, Bobby B says Ohio State.
Look, I will say this.
Well, I don't think it's going to be that.
I will say this. You said good luck to all of them. I do not like Texas. I do not like Ohio State. So I wish good luck to no one.
Yeah. All right, Garrett, thank you, buddy, for weaving in and out. We still aren't done. We have the 5 o'clock hour around the corner. Emery Winter is also starting to edit 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. So we're not done. We will come back with even more. Scott Drew will join us, Kenneth Davis on the Big Ten, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, got some new information from CEO, General Manager Ted T. David Gray, in charge of new car sales. The hot deals continue even though it's the start of a new month. In fact, huge discounts on what is a spectacular SUV. The Jeep Wagoneers, the Grand Wagoneers, plus you get 3.9% financing for 72 months. The affordable Jeep Compass. I drove one of those around for a while in a loaner car at $25,995 with a lot of value bundled up in this little car like active lane management system, full speed, forward, collision warning, blind spot, cross path detection, Uconnect 5 radio system, and an 8.4 touchscreen display, and the 5-star crash warning and safety rating. Also, the 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, most decorated SUV in history at $35,925 plus tax, title, and license. The car loaded with accessories, adaptive cruise control, full speed, forward collision warning, park view, backup camera, and a lot more at a 5-star safety rating. Motor Trend Truck of the Year for a long, man, it's been like a half a dozen or more times. The 2025 Ram 1500, 7th time they've won that prestigious award. All at Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with a Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Scott Drew with us here on 365 Sports, Baylor head basketball coach. And Coach, I got to ask you one thing that's been on my mind since the other night. My wife had very specific dinner plans, so I decided not to go to the Cincinnati game, even though I was like, yeah, we're finally back from vacation. I need to get out to the stadium for a Big 12 game. And my favorite athlete of all time is sitting next to Chip Gaines and Bo Jackson. Did you get to meet Bo Jackson?
Actually, I have before, and that's the perks of coming to the Foster. You never know who's going to be there. So I'm glad you had that date night, had a good time. But if you come to the Foster, you never know what might be there.
Hey, look, I just know I was sitting on, I was looking at Twitter, watching the game. I'm checking on Twitter, things are going on, and then I just see a quick little flash on TV. I was like, "Who's that with Chip? He looks familiar." I think that's Bo Jackson. And then I was like, it's Bo Jackson. I was like, of all the nights, you have to play it cool, Scott, with the date nights. Oh, well, that would have been the second best thing we did tonight.
Hey, one thing I know a lot of people that are younger don't realize, but I believe Bo's the only athlete to ever be all pro in football, in the NFL, and Major League Baseball. And he could have been an Olympic sprinter. I think it was a 10.980 ran. And that's at like 220. I mean, what an athlete. Like, you can Google all that stuff and fact check it. But what a great athlete.
Hey, 4.1940. That is best, which is ridiculous. Yeah. It is absolutely ridiculous. He probably would have been a great basketball player as well, and no one would want to get in the way of him driving down the court. So in the last couple of weeks, you guys have really coalesced well on defense, and that was kind of the struggle early in the year. How much of that is, tweaking little schematic things, and how much of it is just in today's college basketball, you don't really get to hit the ground running with a bunch of guys who have played together for very long, and it takes a while for everybody to learn the dance steps, so to speak.
100%, and then as coaches, you adjust what you like to do based on what's best for the personnel of the team. And so I think the longer we're together, the better we'll be, and that's where people that have been together 2-3 years have a big advantage. But the ones that are just coming together have bigger upside. So it's a race to the finish line, and we're doing a great job. I think again the some years and probably most teams that have won it all would tell you they were just really blessed without injuries those years or less injuries. And we've had 8 days of practice, I believe, where everybody has been available and we've been able to compete and go hard. So until we get Langston, Jalen back, and they're making great progress. There'll be a game time decision come this weekend and Tuesday. But until you can get those practice reps and continue to grow in that continuity and chemistry, I mean, coaches understand the importance of practice. I've said this before. It's like cooking. I don't cook well, but if I made chocolate chip cookies or if I made a good dessert, if you don't have all the ingredients, the dessert doesn't taste the same. And you got to have all the ingredients. And for us, everybody being in practice, that allows us to perform well when it comes to game time. So praying that we can get healthy, stay healthy the rest of the year so we can see just how good we can become.
I want to speak to Langston really quickly because in his time here, he's been through, I mean, he tore his ACL before he even got to play a game here and had to wait. And I don't know if I know a story of a kid who just battles through it like him. What is it? Is it just in his nature? I mean, he clearly loves the game a lot too. To deal with this over and over again, and because of the nature of sports, like sometimes you can't get healthy until you stop. Well, you can't stop while you're kind of in it, right?
Yeah, and he's had some unfortunate bad breaks, and what I mean by that is getting his eye scratched in a game. I mean, everybody has those kind of risks, freak injuries, the pec muscle lifting. I mean, just a bunch of things that. In lightweights, not like heavyweights or anything. So it speaks to his toughness character to want to come back, want to play, want to compete. And as a coach, kind of like as a parent, if you've ever had a son that's a daughter that's been sick or injured, you're like, you just feel for them because you know how much they care and how much they want to be out there. And then the good thing is when coaches are able to see who can help the team and who can't. And when you can tell they can help, that's when they can play. And you love guys that want to get back out on the court and want to try because then it's really you're able to see just how close they are. And one thing about this team, we do got toughness. We got guys that want to be out there, want to compete, want to get better. So as a coach, you feel good with that because that's not always the case. I mean, everything's always up to the individual, and it's a lot easier to go to war with someone that you know wants to be there and have your back.
You and your staff did a very good job in the early days of the transfer portal when it was get a guy, he's got to sit out a bit and then come in. Now, all that process is accelerated. How much and how quickly did you have to change that, given what we talked about earlier of, having to have that chemistry come together faster than having guys, Jared and Davion in the gym for a year, just kind of waiting it out and building the relationship that way in a way that you really you can't have anymore because they can be in the gym for the summer, but once the season starts, it's all guys playing together.
Yeah, and that's where there's always strengths and weaknesses, advantages, disadvantages to everything. the advantages to sitting out is it allows you to really work on your game. You can spend extra time in the weight room, extra time on the court, because if you get tired or wore out, you don't have to be fresh for games. Plus, you can work on improving a skill or a craft and not have the national judgment in a game like he can't shoot versus going up in baby steps and having 9 months to make an impression, an improvement. Does that make sense without the negative feedback? And so there is a lot of advantages to being able to do that. Plus, you learn every other offense, defense from so your mental capacity, plus your familiarity with what your coaching staff wants and how they want to play, and you learn a lot by watching there and seeing it. So those are advantages. Advantages playing right away, obviously, is you don't have to spend a year where you're not allowed to play, and everybody wants to play right away. Nobody likes to sit. So as a coaching staff, everything in life you have to you either adjust or you get left behind. So you figure it out, come up with the best system. And I think our staff really does a great job of trying to identify people that are great representatives of Baylor University, Central Texas, in the community. None of us are perfect. We're all saved through grace, through faith. But at the end of the day, we got a lot of guys that are great representatives. They embrace preparing champions for life, spiritual, academic, character formation, and athletic. They care about representing the community well. They give back to the community. So our staff's really done a great job in putting together a group of guys that represent us well. Now it's just a matter of getting healthy, seeing what we can become when we are, and until then, just keep finding ways to compete and win games.
You make your first trip to Tempe as conference members this week, and that's a team that just new to it, but they're 10-4, 1-2 in the conference. They had Kansas down at half in Allen Fieldhouse the other day before Kansas came roaring back. What have you seen from the Sun Devils, and what kind of challenges do they pose?
Well, first and foremost, it's really hard to win on the road. They have 2 road losses. They have 1 home game. They beat Colorado by 20 at home. So at the end of the day, you really got to play well to win on the road. People want to know basketball. The crowds make a big impact. That's why only 33% of the road teams won last year. And that's why the crowd's so important for us when we come here. And it gives you energy, gives you enthusiasm, excitement, allows you to play better. So Arizona State's a team that can really shoot the 3. They got some really good size and length at the 5, and at the same time, at home, they can really put up numbers in a hurry. So we got to be on point. We got to be ready to go.
Now, look, I know that Bobby Hurley's son is playing for them now, but when you look across at Bobby Hurley, do you still see like 1992 Duke dribbling up the court?
I'll be honest, he's got good enough players. I don't have time to look at him. We gotta see what's going on in the game. But he was he all-time assist leader in college basketball. Huge respect for him and his family. The Hurleys, Hall of Fame basketball family, and we know how hard it is being in this profession. So much respect.
Yeah. Last thing before I let you go, has anything? The league's still very tough. It didn't get easier at all. I mean, you're not going to add teams to get easier. Is there anything that surprised you about the early going of the league, or is it too early to find a trend yet since you're only 3 games in?
Yeah, I think the one trend is every game is and again, this year the SEC right now analytically is ahead of us. They're having a special year. We're still the second best conference, and in the last 10 years. I think 8 out of 10 years we've been the best. So it's because top to bottom, every place in every staff and every coach, every player that we go against, it's the Big 12, and there's no off nights. And if you're not ready, you have no chance. And if you're prepared, it gives you a chance, but doesn't guarantee anything.
Coach Scott Drew, we'll always love having you on, Coach. Good luck. Enjoy Tempe.
Well, I appreciate you, and thanks for all that you guys do. Thanks for the great home court advantage you give us, and we're excited to get out of this snow and ice. And when we get back, that Texas weather, it'll probably be 80 and sunny.
That's right. That's right. Scott Drew with us here on 365 Sports.
Another so-so pizza from So-So's Pizza? But wait, there's Marco's! Our new triple pepperoni Magnifico pizza is stacked with classic, crispy cupped, and new bold shredded pepperoni. It's triple the flavor, and only at Marco's. Just $11.99.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Looking for the best selection of new and pre-owned cars in Central Texas? Look no further than Allen Samuels in Waco. From trucks to family SUVs, we've got it all at Allen Samuels in Waco, your friend in the car business.
Come by, let's be friends.
Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. Get ready for the best YouTube segment you're going to see anywhere. This week is me and Kenneth. We reunite after a month apart. It's been tough. Yeah, exactly. Kenneth, here are my first couple thoughts watching that game last night. At the end of the game, James Franklin, who's a famously tight coach when it comes to the game plan, decided we've got several timeouts here. We've got a few seconds. We can get into field goal range. And he, for once, decided damn the torpedoes, let's go. And they threw a pick, and it's like somebody who's afraid of snakes. And then you say, you know what, I'm just going to let you hold the non-venomous snake. And then that snake bites you. And you're like, well, I'm not going to hold snakes anymore. That happened at the end of that game last night. And the other thing I think is, what LSU needs to do is let Brian Kelly move on and then hire a cool black guy, and then everything will be better. I
don't know. It works in the playoffs. And again, of course, shout out to my brothers. Mm-hmm. But I mean, one thing, again, you guys know I'm an Alabama fan.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about Ryan Day. But the same thing applies to Marcus Freeman and James Franklin. There's a lot of people now. And one of the things that when I first started coming on this show with you guys, we talked about was this new reality of the playoffs, and that a lot of people are going to be able to prop up themselves by saying I made it into the playoffs and I made it to a national championship game, who when they had an opportunity in a 4-team playoffs. Last night, that particular series at the end of the game where Penn State had the ball, they stopped Indy, the game is tied, and you got a first down on a run play. There was at that point, and again, I'm not going to say totally take the ball out of Drew Aller's hands, because anybody that watched Penn State last season before they were able to bring in more talent on the offensive side, that was part of the problem. They didn't have enough verticality on the edges. But and I definitely blame James Franklin takes a hit with that. That pass that Drew Aller threw was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, over the middle, it was just, when you saw him throw it, it was like, oh shit, I apologize, but that's just how I felt when he threw the pass. And for me, and you guys know how I have rooted for Penn State, but I have abandoned them. I was with James Naveau, my guy. We were talking last weekend, we were hanging out, and I said, you know what? I'll take Penn State over ND. I'll take them over ND, even if with ND having a slight edge, because I think offensively they'll be able to get more done than what Riley Leonard can do, just being a super Paul Hornung-esque early Green Bay quarterback H-back. And again, shout out to Notre Dame for being able to get something done in the pass play with a couple big pass plays. But that was ridiculous. You could have won in overtime. But still, the run game was getting you first down. At least it's the second down of that series should have perhaps have been a pass play, but it should have been a safe pass play to the edges. Throwing over the middle at that predicament when you can go into overtime was ridiculous. They squandered an opportunity to make it to the national championship game for the first time since Joe Paterno was there. That really aggravated me last night. And honestly, I'm happy for Marcus Freeman. I used to love Indy. Lou Holtz was one of my favorite coaches when I was a little kid or whatever. But because I had been on the bandwagon for Penn State the last couple of years, and let alone Drew Aller, man, I hate it. Of course, he messed up. Let me say that. I know these kids are getting some dollars now, but they're inexperienced in high pressure games to a certain degree, some of them, or maybe I just give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt. It was sad to see how he was tore up about it, but he messed up and he gave away a chance that they may not get another opportunity anytime soon. I think they'll be in the playoffs, but this kind of set up for them to make it to the national championship game. They're going to be teams perhaps in the future that are a lot more dynamic than what Notre Dame is, and they may have just scooped the pooch on this one. So it was definitely frustrating through my text thread with my friend last evening.
Well, look, Drew Aller is going to be back next year, and that's good news for Penn State, and I think he's going to continue to get better. I mean, he's been better year over year. Notre Dame's defense just threw a lot of looks at him last night, and I think the biggest thing was they had okay wide receivers at Penn State this year that got them by, but they need to, if they really want to take that next step and beat a defense like Notre Dame, they've got to have guys that are kind of like, whoa, like how did that happen? They don't have any of those guys, and that seems to be really the only position on the field that James Franklin hasn't completely nailed down in recruiting. And I'm sorry, and might be a position coach issue as well. Like that might be something that he's got to do something that makes him uncomfortable and shake that up.
Also, I think when you look at it, let's just hypothetically say you have a 6'2", 18-year-old who's a phenomenal receiver. It's the first, well, not even the first. It's the fifth place you're talking about sending him, your son with his future, to Penn State to play wide receiver. Like it's not necessarily. It's one of those linebacker U institutions. It's not a place, or even running back. The history of great running backs that they've had over the last 40-something odd years since Franco Harris. I'm sure some people you can go back prior to Franco Harris, just going about right before I was born. I think that plays a part, but still with NIL money in the portal, you can get guys there. But hypothetically, even with what they had, you have two nice running backs and probably the number one tight end. And now I'm not saying that of course, they're going to key in on Ty Warren, but you use him as a decoy. Like there are things that you can pull off in that situation. For Penn State, the wide receivers weren't bad, but I'm with you. They weren't, super, but they were better than what they had the season before. But even it's still the play, regardless of anything. It doesn't matter if Marvin Harrison Jr. was out there. That ball was getting intercepted.
Yeah.
Like that. That's where it was frustrating, where it was just like, and again, it's one of those growths in a quarterback where sometimes you just have to eat it. And that frantic feeling of I have to do something, get it out, just throw it. A sack right there. A sack is better because it still allows you to take time off the clock. And perhaps even if you have to punt the ball, give it back to them with just a little bit of time, negating perhaps an opportunity for them to take a field goal because they have to drive majority of the field. Like that's where it was just frustrating when it came to what happened last. Like you hate to see a game like that end like that. Even if, regardless of against your ND, I'm sure you're happy because you thought you may not have a chance to take the game in regulation. But still, that was just frustrating. I'll say this, and I'm always going to have a part of me that roots for Drew Aller. There probably is a reason why sometimes they put the handcuffs on him when it comes to opening up, the playbook because they fear situations like this taking place even in his second year as a full-time starter.
Yeah. I think it's good that he's coming back. I think another year in Andy Kovalic's system, I think it's good. I think it's going to be good for them. Now, again, you're going to lose Singleton and Katron Allen. I mean, that's, you're going to in a loaded NFL draft running back class this year. So as a Cowboys fan, I want them to draft Ashton Genty, but
I hope you do.
He's from Frisco. Like he's from he went to high school literally like this far from the Star. Like it's right there. Like if you on the Google Maps, you're just like, oh, you can see the two things in the same screen. You don't have to scroll the damn map. You just look at it. And you're like, there it is. But if you're a team in the NFL and you get a Katron Allen or Nicholas Singleton, I mean, those are they have NFL bodies, NFL speed, NFL strength, big, one cut running styles. They're going to be fine too. So if the Cowboys wind up with a Penn State guy, happy with that too. You can't.
They need one.
Yeah, exactly. They need that badly. Yeah. Dak needs it. He's going to have to go to Jerry and be like, please, just
it's
ignore,
time to go back.
Ignore this stupid analytics nonsense. Having an A+ running back. I think Penn State, if you're looking at, I think all levels of football need to look at what they can learn from each other. I think for a long time it was always like, well, the NFL is going to do the NFL's thing, and then everybody below them can do that. And then you started having high school coaches do some really innovative things, and then college coaches going, well, if this is the offense they're running, we need to put schemes like this in here because I don't want to I don't want to start like, okay, this is the football. You need 10 yards because I think it felt like that to them when you're teaching a kid a whole new offense. Overall, now the NFL is like that, where they're like, okay, here's some things. One of the things I think the NFL can look at Penn State and go is like, oh, you had two stud running backs and that was able to take pressure off of a good quarterback. But, not everybody, like, I think quarterbacks and starting pitchers in baseball are the same. Like, some days you don't have your stuff. You don't, and that's why you need a banger back there to carry you. And I think people have forgotten about the running back, but to Penn State and to Notre Dame's credit, they're like, no. Like, we're going to get studs and run the ball at you.
Fundamental football always still works.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to be able to score, and you have to have the ability to perhaps have big plays. But if you can control the time of possession and you have a good defense and you can be physical with your running game on any level of football, it works. I know this, it applies, but it doesn't apply. Even if you go back to the greatest show on turf, and I'm talking about the St. Louis Rams, part of the reason I felt like they didn't win that second Super Bowl was because they forgot Marshall Faulk also was a running back outside of being a great pass catcher. Time of possession. They were scoring so fast at times that you were giving the opposing team more opportunities than they needed. You need to run the football, to your point. And then going just real quick with Dallas, listen, you saw what it did when Zeke was there. You have, I know there are other parts where they need some help at Dallas, but and you pointed out help in Dak, what a prime time running back could do with one thing. And listen, I think sometimes grit, and this is from me looking on the outside looking in, I think grit plays a factor in why the Cowboys haven't been. I think a large part of it is because you don't have to listen to the coach because you can go above the coach, and that's always a problem when it's like, like Charlie Brown's parents, and it's like, I'm just go talk to Jerry. But one thing you have to say over the last decade at least, primarily playing general manager, he can spot talent. It's just the discipline and the structure. But so offensively, with the line, it's usually you guys are going to have a good line. I know the line has been aging out with some of the guys that were great 5 to 6 years ago. But you need, I would love to see Gentry, as you mentioned, with the Penn State guys. But in the first or second round, I want to see Dallas take a phenomenal running back and just run them. It just makes sense. And like you said, in the NFL, look at what the 49ers do. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you look at what the Dolphins do, if you could sit there, and the Dolphins may not bring physicality like the 49ers does, but the Dolphins can put anybody back there and he'll get 120 yards. It's just, you have to run the football, getting to your point about, still doing what worked back in the days, but also applying what on the lower tiers they're doing, because you don't want to retrain somebody from the bottom all the way back up. You don't have enough time as a coach.
Absolutely. And if you look at the two teams that are playing tonight, Ohio State and Texas, they're both at their best when their running backs are hitting. Yep. And they've got – and look, the story of Ohio State is not Travion Henson and Quinshon Judkins, also two NFL running backs. It's their receivers and Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate. Like, he gets lost in the shuffle. He's really good too. But again, he's out there with a guy who's been there for a while and the best freshman wide receiver I've ever seen in my life. And maybe anybody will. I mean, it just like he is. Like every time they say like, oh, he was at his senior prom in May. I'm like, no, he was not. Was he dropping his little, like you think like, oh, he's dropping his little brother off, right? Like that's why he was at a prom. Like he's about to go make, $20 million in the NFL. This game to me, Ohio State is red hot. Texas has not been playing their best ball the last month. But their defense is so lethal, I don't think it matters as much. And neither of these teams are elitely great like Georgia was a couple years ago or 2019 LSU. I think Ohio State's getting this big number because they're hot. But, man, Texas, if they can run the ball a bit and if they can stuff you, and that secondary is really good, this game's going to be better, I think, than most people think.
Oh, for sure. And I pray it is, because – the last thing I want is to sit there and give Ryan Day his flowers. All right. Like I need Austin to do me a solid up here in the Midwest. I think this is going to be, and I could be wrong, this is just my opinion, this is going to be a lot on Will Howard because
he's 0-3 against Texas.
That's and because if you ask me if I want to go with Ewers or Howard, I'm taking Ewers every day. I think Ewers has been the best quarterback that was left out of all these 4 teams. I feel like if I had to play my life on one of these guys, and I would want to put my life on any of them, he would be the person that I would be like, all right, I know he can kind of get it done. He may just have a hiccup here or there. I think if you put it on Will Howard to win this game, and as you say, if Texas defense can get up and stuff the ball and you make him have to win the game, it gives Texas a great chance to win it. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas won, but I have to say that I would take Ohio State in this situation. That Michigan loss did something. And this is the problem with the playoffs as a hater. Right now I'm coming in as a professional hater. But the problem with the playoffs, because think about it, if there wasn't a playoffs, a lot of teams wouldn't have the opportunity to come back and I should say a 12-team playoff is what I should say. It wouldn't allow some of these teams another opportunity to be like, yeah, you get a bowl game, but you're not in the playoffs. But yeah, shout out to Ohio State, because I'll be honest, I didn't think that they could get it back together and become probably the best team, as you meant, the hottest team right now in the CFP. And I mean, I felt like perhaps the committee should have broken down those brackets differently, and they shouldn't have faced Oregon as early as they faced Oregon. I think they should have ended up facing Oregon perhaps now. But still, I definitely give Texas a chance. I think out of these, the 3 teams that are left, including Texas outside of Ohio State, Texas has the best opportunity to beat Ohio State. I wouldn't have taken Penn State, and I wouldn't take Indy to beat Ohio State at this point. I think Texas is the only team that was left that can perhaps prevent them from winning the national championship, getting Ryan Day his first national championship as the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah. Notre Dame, if they win this thing, feels to me like they are more doing it on the team of destiny vibe, right?
Yes,
like they're just
absolutely.
like nothing about like the opponent to them right now is faceless. It's just guys in different color helmets. It doesn't register with them. And that's how you have a team that doesn't have prolific. I mean, their defense is pretty prolific. Let's not get it twisted. But their offense is very 1986. I mean, it's not anything that we see all that often anymore. So if you've got a team like Notre Dame that's kind of team of destiny and all that doesn't see that in front of them, that's scary to a team like Ohio State and Texas, because they literally will, it won't matter. It'll just be this formation. But when it comes to Ohio State and Texas, part of the other reason I think that Texas is going to win, and this is the reason I thought Notre Dame was going to win last night, is they've got a coach who can Marcus Freeman finally learned how to take breaths and enjoy the moment. And he this year, other than any of the other years he was there, he enjoys the tense moments. And like, that's where he's like, this is where I'm going to cook. Steve Sarkisian, that's his whole thing. Like, all right, this didn't work. Okay, turn the page. Here, I've got another thing that'll work. That's what Ryan Day doesn't do well. Like in both of these games that they've won, look, if Ohio State jumps out and he doesn't have to be a tactician late, then they look great. But if they do, and Texas can certainly make them, then I give that to Steve Sarkisian because he's way better later in games than Ryan Day is. And you can just look to any big loss that Ryan Day's had, whether it be to Michigan or Georgia or anywhere else where – he wins because he builds ridiculously talented teams that can run out on you, and then he can sit back and go, all right, well, now we can just kind of live on easy street. But if you can match them snap for snap, then he's got a problem.
If you can play it close to the fourth with Ryan Day, you have the advantage because he gets conservative and he gets too tight to go along with what you're saying about Marcus Freeman and the freedom that you see him having on the sidelines now. And Shark has been Shark for a long time now. But that's the problem still is right now, it seems like everything's clicking for Ohio State. So that's really the problem. The problem why being someone from the Big Ten, and I always tell people, Ohio State alums and fans, like, say it with your chest out. You guys have too much talent to be meek. Like you're supposed to be the LSU, Alabamas, the Georgias. Like as far as like if I was down in SEC country, the teams, definitely Georgia and Alabama. I don't know about LSU, Garrett, but definitely, just those teams.
On, man.
I'm just having some fun. But even still, LSU can stick their chest. Like there's times that they've won two national championships within the last decade, where you can stick your chest out. And sometimes it seems like Ohio State fans are like, yes. I mean, it's like, dude, you're the big school in the Big Ten. Act like it. You have the best talent usually year in and year out, but you don't take advantage of it. And that's part of the reason why I've been off the Ryan Day bandwagon, because I felt like he's had wonderful talent and hasn't used it. You just brought up the fact that usually with Tate, their third wide receiver is like, look, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, you'd be like, oh yeah, they got a nice guy, and he ends up being a stud. Like they're one of those schools, like I'll give props to LSU. They're in Alabama, they're a wide receiver U type school, Ohio State, but they don't play like that half the time. Like everything you said about Penn State, imagine, and again, Drew Aller has to have the poise, but imagine having the wide receiver trio that Ohio State has at Penn State. Like Ohio State usually has an embarrassment of riches when it comes to wide receiver, but there are times where, and you mentioned Michigan, you're in the fourth quarter, and instead of being like, you know what, I'm gonna go out and follow my sword, I'm just going out. Ryan Day gets scared with this play calling and allows another team that isn't playing conservative to take advantage of them and exploit them, and they end up losing the game. Again, though, if I'm picking for tonight, I'm picking Ohio State. Even though I'm playfully hating, I'm as a Big Ten person, I enjoy the school. I just want them to say it with pride and stop acting scared sometimes.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, everybody, like, dogs take on the attitude of their owners, right? Like if you're chill, your dog's gonna be chill. If you're high strung, it's the same thing with coaches and fan bases. The coaches are high strung, the fan base is gonna be high strung. The one thing I can tell you that I've noticed about Texas fans who are insufferable a large amount of the time, I will tell you, they have been a lot more chill with Sark because Sark is chill. Notre Dame, the same thing. Look, I'm Catholic. I grew up, you have two kinds of people when you grow up Catholic. You have people who are Notre Dame fans, and then people who hate Notre Dame because somebody told them that they had to be a Notre Dame fan, and they said, you can't tell me what to do. That's the two things. And even the Notre Dame fans in my life, they're like chill. They're like, oh, hey, like football's fun, right? And like, I remember when Jimbo Fisher was at FSU, like, there's nothing chill about Jimbo. I was very confident that year, but after 2013, my life as a fan of Jimbo's FSU was a nightmare because it was just like, like the Jameis year, great. The second Jameis year where they were just like drunk until the fourth quarter and we're like, did you guys know we're losing? We're losing. All right, hey, let's go win this thing. Like, that's how it was. It was just like somebody, like, they got it at They got it at halftime, and like somebody gave them some scrambled eggs, and they were like, "Oh, it's 21-7. What? All right, no, let's go score 3 touchdowns." You guys got it? Okay, good deal. I'm gonna throw up, and I'll be back in. So that's kind of how it went. But Kenneth, great to see you. We'll start rolling it back up. We'll get into some NFL stuff too. I'm very curious. I'm gonna have you on when the Bears decide what they're gonna do at head coach, because I'm very curious about that. They're interviewing everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my call. I'm just sitting here waiting for my call. I'm worried I might say yes too fast, but
take your time. Take your time. Get everything you need. Get everything you need.
That's right. That's right. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. Check him out. Kenneth, always great to see you, buddy.
You too. See you guys.
This is 365 Sports.
Looking for a wheeled cooler, this is the Arctic 52-quart ultralight wheeled cooler. I hauled it on a deck, I hauled it downstairs, upstairs, grass, gravel, a sandy road, mud puddles, the whole bit. And I gotta say, it is pretty darn tough. I really do like the wheels and the tow handle. It's easy to hold on to, even when full. It made it 6 full days with ice present, still keeping cool enough temperatures to keep drinks cold. This is a great cooler. And if you're looking for a new wheeled cooler that tows really nicely, this is a great option.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
There are hundreds of things that can affect our sleep, but what's affecting yours? Sleep Doctor's home sleep test brings the precision of a sleep lab into the comfort of home to help you get answers and unlock a lifetime of great sleep. Start now at sleepdoctor.com/TV.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. And today, in honor of Garrett Ross and how thrilled he is that Marcus Freeman is in the college football playoff final, the national championship game, the top 5 differences between Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly. brought to you by Texas Beef House, and Garrett's Blind Rage. Also, special thanks to Christian McCollum, who covers the Irish. We've had him on the show a bunch of times. I called him this morning to help me walk through some of this. He gave me some great insight onto what are the differences between Brian Kelly and Marcus Freeman, and I thought Garrett could use this and send it on down the way to LSU. As a matter of fact, I hope that this gets posted on tigerbait.com with our friend Mike Scarborough so that the LSU fans can see it and know what they have to adjust. So, number 5. Freeman learned how to coach loose, not coach to lose, which sometimes it looked like in those games against Marshall or even NIU earlier this year that he was coaching not to lose. Now he coaches loosey-goosey. And I don't know if that's a goose. It looks like more like a duck. But even still, he is, right now it appears he embraces the late game challenges. He embraces the tougher opponents. Against top 10 opponents, his record is stellar. The exact opposite of James Franklin, who he played last night, and in contradiction to Brian Kelly, who's kind of hit or miss when it comes to the big boys. As a matter of fact, most fans are shocked when Brian Kelly pulls an upset or wins a game that LSU's not supposed to, because when it comes to the big boys, he's a little bit like James Franklin. Coaches tight and not that. Marcus Freeman, if you saw the way he's been coaching, especially these last few weeks and into the playoff, he is just relaxed and he's really enjoying himself as a coach with this team. That makes a huge difference. It's made a huge difference for Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Absolutely, they went from an uptight guy to a guy who is able to focus those emotions in the right places. And Steve Sarkisian is that at Texas. And Marcus Freeman's a guy who focuses emotions in the right places at Notre Dame. Number 4. He's genuine. And what better way to say genuine than Snoopy? But he's accountable for when they make coaching mistakes, as opposed to Brian Kelly, who's more of a yeah, but guy. Yeah, we need to tackle better, but it's not on the coach. Or yeah, we need to coach that better, but these guys need to do, he just doesn't take it as much. But Marcus Freeman is genuine. He's down to earth. Brian Kelly is an administrator, and a really good administrator, and a guy who runs an organization well from the top down. But his interpersonal relationships are where it kind of goes awry. And you've seen that with the weird fake accent video and the weird social media pictures that go out when the recruits come in. Those kind of things are different. He's got to kind of force that. And it's not his personality. It's where Marcus Freeman genuinely is just a nice, fun guy who loves coaching football. Number 3, more into that, because of that, he's a natural relationship builder. So whether it's with coaches, with players, with anything, he's able to kind of just naturally grow that relationship, as where Brian Kelly has to kind of remind himself to do these things. And that's what's maybe allowed him. And look, Notre Dame's not an easy place to coach. It's like coaching the Yankees or the Cowboys or the Lakers. The expectations are sky high. No matter how long it's been since they won a national title, they've got their own television network. They have all this big sway. So you need to be able to naturally build relationships and cool the temperature down when things are going the wrong way. And he's very, very good at that. And because of that, he actually enjoys recruiting. I don't know how many coaches anymore really do. It's become a lot harder. And the reason I use this gif right here is I was shocked to hear this. I don't know many coaches who do, but then I started thinking about it. A guy that you just heard from, Scott Drew, he enjoys it. It's the same kind of thing. Natural relationship builder, genuine, enjoys recruiting, enjoys meeting new people. If you're not going to come and play for him, he's still a guy who likes to meet you. It's not a transactional thing. And that really bleeds through to players, it bleeds through to the coaches, and it bleeds through to the fans as well. And number 1, he's empowered the staff. Brian Kelly's more of a guy who rules with an iron fist. Marcus Freeman's more of understanding what it's like to be the CEO now. when he's got Al Golden, who runs the defense, and the defensive staff and the position coaches can build their recruiting tree and go through what they want and then go to him as opposed to the other way around. Al Golden, not the best recruiter. So guess what? He doesn't put him out front in recruiting, but Mike Mickens, the defensive backs coach, is a fantastic recruiter, and he puts him out front when it comes to defensive recruiting. Those are the kind of things you need to do as opposed to maybe an arcane organizational flow chart that says your defensive coordinator has to be the best recruiter. Al Golden, as Christian told me, is more of the adult in the room when parents need to see, okay, well, this guy's been at Penn State, at Notre Dame, at Miami. He's been in the NFL. He's the adult in the room that can kind of put your kid in the right direction if they want to play at the next level. Also, empowering the staff means that they don't have to walk on eggshells or do anything else. They feel they're in control of their own game plan, and then he adds his little spice to it. And all this at 38 years old is really, really, really impressive. And I would not be surprised to see the NFL looking at Marcus Freeman very, very, very soon for any jobs that are open. If not this year, I promise you next year, they're going to come a-calling for Marcus Freeman. Thanks for watching 365 Sports. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the weekend. We will know who the finalists are on Monday, and we will give you all the information, and we'll talk about it. This is 365 Sports. Have a great weekend, everybody.